Welcome everyone to VR Verdict Podcast, a special new episode. Joining us is Garage Collective, Simeon and Cyril. How you guys doing?
What's up? How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good. You guys are currently working on Drakkenridge. We'll talk about, but you've done Shock Troops, you've done Stones of Harlath, um, a lot of other stuff before that. So, and everything I've played, I've enjoyed thoroughly. So we've talked many times.
Peter, Peter Legion. Don't forget
Yep.
Peter.
Yep.
The Go on the Oculus Go. Do people even remember the Oculus Go?
Yep.
I still have a brand new, like in a box. It's still shrink wrap.
No
Uh,
way.
at some point, like maybe I don't know, in 10 years, I'll open it and kind of like.
They've been porting a lot of those Go games to the Quest 3 and stuff now with a new fresh coat of paint and stuff. That's kind of interesting. Cool to see some of the old stuff come back. So,
Yeah, it's the controller was very different, and there was only one of them. So it's like in terms of gameplay, yeah. I mean, they were simple games. Peter Legion was fun.
yeah. But yeah, you guys are working on a new game, and I think you're targeting next year for release. So you're kind of right in the middle of stuff now, and you share a lot on, social media about your progress, which is awesome to see. And gets me excited, especially when you talk about dwarven realms and things like that.
Oh
I'm a
yeah.
big dwarf nerd, so
For sure.
I still think about the dwarf tower you shared like a year or two ago. Like, ah,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't. Have you seen the new environment? The dwarf dungeon, and I actually was thinking of you guys. I paid like I cannot disappoint with my dwarf environment. Um, the dungeon is crazy. Do you want to talk about it, Simeon?
Oh, sure. The Dwarven Fortress.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a lot more than a tower now, for sure. So when you get to the dwarf island, it has the classic mountains and stuff, but of course, underneath those mountains are the mines, right? But it's
right.
not just, any old mines. It's a fortress. It's an underground fortress. And
Be
what makes it
disappointed if it wasn't, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. What makes it cool is it's got kind of that Casa Doom feel, with the gaping drops and the really high ceilings, but also we have an important gameplay feature which we're introducing that we haven't done in previous games at Garage Collective. But I don't know. Do you want to talk about that, Cyril? The
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I
Yes.
can. Yeah,
Or
yeah.
do you want to? Sure.
Sure, I can. I mean, do you want me to show it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Show it off.
Let me open it. Let me open it.
And I haven't, while you're opening that, I haven't been on Twitter in ages. I've fallen off the face of the earth, but holy crap, I'm scrolling back through and catching up on these screenshots. You got eagle mounts now? Holy crap.
Yeah, oh, the Eagle
Oh
Mount.
well.
The Eagle Mounts. I'm opening it. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Uh,
miss
So
so much.
so the Eagle mounts are pretty great. That it all starts out as a side quest, but you quickly realize that it actually has long-term implications for the rest of the game when you unlock the ability to ride eagles. As in one sense, it's a way to fast travel. In another sense, it's a way to see the environment from a new angle, and it's super awesome in VR. And so we're introducing a little bit of that same type of thing in what Cyril's about to show you for the Dwarven Underground Fortress.
yeah, I'm trying to find I'm trying to find the flyover camera in the Dwarven Fortress, and I'm not sure I can find
The
it. Give
search
me a
bar, yeah.
camera flyover. All right, I'm going to turn it on.
There you go.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
I
Yep.
see it.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's what I'm talking about.
and oh shit, thing is getting. Let me see. Let me see if I can play that without crashing. No, no, because it's a different camera. Like it's a non-VR camera. It's a flat screen camera.
I
And
think
sometimes,
it'll work.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, so this is where you start in that kind of big environment.
the zoom stream's a little laggy, so um, I don't know. Just give me a heads
Wait,
up.
let me see if I can share, if I can optimize for video. I know that there is like a share screen and share optimize for video. Oh, optimize for video sharing is not, it's grayed out, so I cannot do better than that.
Maybe you have
That's
to
all
pay
right.
premium for that feature.
Um,
Oh, is that snow
so
coming in the crack? That's awesome.
yeah, there is snow. You will have like some. So one of the things that we'll have in Drakkenridge that we did not really have in Stones of Olaf nor Shock Troops is that we'll have friendly NPCs.
Hmm.
Will give you quests that will give you side quests, etc. So like, and in the dungeons, and we have some dungeons where there are like some companions that are going to kind of
Nice.
follow you and kind of like tell you where to go. But so the whole kind of idea is that you're kind of like under the mountain, and there is kind of like we have climbing in the game, so like you can climb ladders, you can climb rocks, etc., etc. But so the whole idea is that you will basically, and sorry, some of those items are not baked, so they come up as black, but they will be baked. But you will have to kind of like walk on that gigantic chain across the chasm. So I'm just going to accelerate a little bit. Another thing that Simeon has put in the game is that we have zip lines.
Nice.
Of course,
Kind
because
of-
nowadays VR ziplining is just the coolest thing. So
So yeah, you
Well,
have like
I
lines
mean,
that.
well, you've been sharing this. We've been talking a little bit on Twitter, and I've been playing Dragon Age, the new Dragon Age, and it's uncanny. Like they have some zip lines, and like it's a gorgeous game. It's fun enough. It's not awesome, but like you sharing this stuff excites me more than what I'm currently doing, and it's just neat to see some similarities and stuff. And it'll be in VR, so even better.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, that's the thing. Like a lot of this is just so cool in VR. It's like the Eagle, right?
Oh
Like
crap.
in the Eagle in VR, amazing. But so that's kind of like the first part of the environment, and it's that kind of gigantic fortress. Is it not too laggy? Is it
No,
okay?
it's a
No,
little better.
it's
it's
fine.
fine.
And
Gorgeous.
so the dungeon is built a lot on verticality. So there is a lot of climbing and a lot of ladders and like things like that. We don't have any enemies yet here, but like there will be a huge gauntlet where you will fight a lot of like possessed dwarves, like evil dwarves.
Oh no.
And you will kind of fight your way all through there, and there will be more climbing on those kind of huge chain. So you will have like little rocks like this that will be kind of like all over there. And then, so as a player, you will have to ascend all over there. You will have to go to come across that gap there, and then continue your way here, then here, then here, and here, and here. And this is what the enemies look like.
How
That's
big is this
huge.
place? Yeah.
No, it is massive, but
It's huge.
it's not over.
Jeez.
It's not over. And then ultimately, you end up here. And this is
Oh
a
shit.
time card, right? And then you will hop on it, and then it will kind of like take you full speed, and then it becomes kind of a roller coaster.
Oh man.
Just finished the dev on that yesterday, so
Wow.
it works.
You firing arrows at those guys? Oh
Yeah,
man.
you can fire arrows when you're in your minecart. We are kind of considering also having other minecarts that kind of like race. Uh,
Nice.
And so you will go all over there and all over there. And this is going, I haven't tried it in VR yet because, as I said, Simeon just finished it. But that should be very, very cool. And then you will get the final boss that is here. And that's kind of that huge forge environment. And I
Nice.
cannot show it to you, but those big hammers, they
I,
are
s-
animated. And
I saw it
so
on the Twitter page.
So
That
like you
looked
will have
cool.
to forge something or deforge something. I don't know. We haven't decided yet, but that will summon the final boss. And you will fight the final boss, but you will have to fight it here. So that means that you are constantly kind of have to dodge the big hammers, or else they will just kind of like flatten you like a. So that's an example of like the dwarven dungeon.
Wow,
An
that's insane.
example.
We have actually a second dwarven dungeon We are still kind of like fiddling a little bit with the amount of content that we want to include. Uh, we have some islands that have two dungeons, and then we have some islands that have only one. And we are still kind of like thinking over whether all islands should have two dungeons, or whether it's okay for some island to have only one and some islands to have two. But there is another one which is kind of a cave, a snowy cave, with like the remains, the ruins of a fortress. So yeah, the dwarf thing is completely, as far as I'm concerned, it's completely done. The only thing that is missing is like a variety of enemies, because you will have spiders, you will have like possessed dwarves, you will have ranch guys, and then there are like all the bosses. What do they look like? We'll need to kind of figure that out.
Oh,
Oh yeah, and
nice.
elementals. You will have like fire elementals and stuff like that.
Love the dwarf stuff.
And I
Yeah,
know
the
you
dwarf.
guys have said like this is by far like much bigger than your past games, and you're not sure you'll do another big one, but I don't know. That's pretty epic.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's a lot of work, right? I mean, I've been on this for like 3 years. Simeon for like a year and a half. It would be a year and a half, 2 years
Yeah,
when we.
yeah, time flies for sure.
And so the thing is that are we going to be profitable? Are we going to sell? It's a lot of work, and I mean it's work we enjoy doing. So it's at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's like even if it doesn't sell well, we still had fun doing it. But um, it starts like when you make a game like Stones of Olaf in roughly a year and a half. I mean, it's easy to kind of like be profitable when you spend, and like we just hired a sound designer because there is no way I could finish all the sounds, and like I wanted like someone, and it's an ex-student of mine that I really enjoyed working with, so like that gives him also kind of like that experience of a first shipped product. So it's kind of a win-win, and he's paid obviously. It's a win-win for everybody. But so it's going to be much more difficult to be profitable on a game that kind of like 3 years for me, 2 years for Simeon, plus an additional team member. And the store, I mean, well, I mean, you've all read, right? I mean, like the Quest store right now is in a weird place. I just don't know if we'll have the discoverability that we had when we shipped Stones of Alaf and Shock Troops.
Right.
Uh,
Hmm.
Yeah, so we don't know what the store is going to be like, but as far as the game is concerned, yeah, you're right. It's by far the largest. And so I mean, if it gets discovered, people I think will love it because it is huge, it is awesome. And like Cyril said, there's friendly NPCs, which means there's side quests. We didn't have side quests before. The side quests, there's things to do. There's places where you can go without enemies if you just want to climb around, have fun, explore. There's places that are just so full of enemies you won't know what to do with yourself if that's the kind of thing you're in, if you just want to bash through a bunch of guys. So like the variety in this game is just yeah, far exceeds the previous titles for sure.
We have also a lot more weapons. We have bows, guns. Well, the opening, like having the physics, like basically getting away from the sprites that were like the signature, right, for all my games before, and kind of like now having tangible 3D models allow us to kind of like make ragdolls. The sword fighting is a lot more involved now because you can parry. Enemies have shields. You need to knock the shields out of their hands so that you can damage them. Like there is a whole. The bow and arrow has quickly become my favorite weapon. Simeon took some assets and kind of created a wand out of nowhere. And it's a wand that has kind of a guided spell. So like you kind of like
Nice.
wave it in a general direction, and the spells kind of like find their way to the enemies. It's pretty fucking cool. So there is like a lot of stuff. And we have guns. We have like flintlock pistols.
Yeah, the original design was for it to be kind of an age of piracy fantasy. And
Nice.
so originally it was you're hunting down pirate lords who are on each island and stealing all the treasure and stuff. And so it's a pirate hunter game. And we definitely kept a lot of that with the pirate themed enemies, and we have the guns, we have the muskets, we have the classic pirate weaponry in addition to the Lord of the Rings, dwarves, elves, etc. So
I don't know
So
actually how did we shift from pirates to kind of like.
yeah, I was gonna ask, what was the original like scope and theme of the game? It seems like you just kept going because you're just having fun and enjoying it.
I don't know
yeah.
where it came from. I think it might have been my fault. Um, no, because the first island that was completely created was Skull Island, which is completely pirate themed. I mean, I can show you.
It was up
Yeah.
around the time I think PJ and I started playing Warcraft like 2021 or two. And then you were posting pictures like getting some inspiration for the next game and you remade yourself as the hunter. I'm
Yeah,
like,
no, I
that
mean, yeah, World of Warcraft is definitely a source of inspiration. But I think that what happened is that I made the Pirate Island and the Pirate Dungeon. They were the first two to be finished. Then I started kind of like doing other environments. The thing to me, um, when I play games, one of the most important aspect is the exploration aspect.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why I like World of Warcraft so much because it's so expansive and there is like cool stuff to see everywhere. Like it's never the same thing. And so when I make my games, I kind of want it to be the same. Like if you think of it, like Stones of Alaf was a small game, Shock Troops has like 5 different themed and environment radically different, right? Snowy planets, kind of like foundry, sci-fi foundries, alien world, like every and so that's the thing for me. It's like if a game is going to put me, you were mentioning about you were talking about Dragon Age. I'm a big fan of Dragon Age Origin, finished it, etc. I never played Dragon Age 2. Like the setting did not appeal to me. And it felt that again, like it felt like everything was always happening in the same place. And I
Yep.
was like, I'm going to get bored. And then Dragon Age Inquisition is kind of an interesting story because my wife was playing Dragon Age Inquisition and I was playing The Witcher. Like they kind of came at the same time.
Mm.
And I was completely pro Witcher and she was pro, like we were having fights on like which game was better, looked better, and things like that. My wife is a massive Dragon Age Inquisition fan. Me, I
Nice.
tried it, and the problem is that it it takes so long to finish the first
Right.
area
Yeah.
that I just got bored, like, and I kind of dropped the game and I stopped playing it. Um, so I bought the new one, but I haven't really had time to play it. So I don't know if it's a little bit more varied or if it changes more often than the previous, which is what I believe I read.
It does,
Uh,
yeah.
it's a lot more varied. So I make my games the way I want to play, and I want to change. I want to see cool shit all the time. And so when the pirate stuff was done, I was like, okay, I'm moving to the next one, which I think the second one I made was the Fish Rider Island. And so I kind of like kept the theme of piracy, but like really with a big, big, big fantasy twist, right? Because they are like fish people. Um, so with an architecture that is kind of like in like very kind of like uh, exotic, etc., etc. And then after that, I think I moved on the main island. And so every time I was like, oh, they need to feel radically different than the previous one. So that kind of pirate core, kind of like we started adding like realms and things like that, that felt like, so we, and that the other thing is that I did not want it. I thought it would be restrictive to make a pirate game, right? We are a fantasy game that happens to have pirates, just the same way that World of Warcraft, there is an expansion that happens on Borderless, right? I mean, and that is strongly kind of like naval themed,
Mhm.
but it's not an obsession. It's like
Mhm.
it's an underlying theme, and I think that the pirate stuff is still a strong underlying theme of Drakkenridge, but it is not an obsession.
Nice. I think
And
that's what kind of drew me to your games because I'm very much the same. I think Wookiee is too. I
Oh yeah.
love exploring. That's why I love Warcraft. Your
I don't
games, there's always
I don't
something new going on. But
I don't play Warcraft how I don't go raiding or anything. I'm the guy running around with PJ and we're just finding all the cracks and crannies. So I
yeah.
think we all play the same.
yeah, no, I mean it's yeah, I mean Warcraft is just amazing. And it has an art style that even like the original Elwyn Forest, or like
Hmm.
it still look pretty good. I mean, like it's a
Yeah.
game that is 20 years old, and I think it aged well.
Yeah.
Not only that, but also because because it was an MMO, because the rendering of all the characters and things like that, it was quite demanding. The game was also kind of like very aggressively stylized and optimized to kind of minimize amount of stuff drawn on the screen, on the draw distance, and all that type of stuff, which are like basically constraints that also exist in VR. So it's like, yeah, I could take inspiration of, I don't know, Dragon Age Inquisition, right, and try to do that in VR. Good luck.
Yeah.
It felt to me that World of Warcraft was already kind of like, as part of their art direction, they already had kind of solved their limitation by making some kind of like stylistic choices that would allow them to optimize, like the fact that their textures, for example, if you look at their textures, they are always split in the middle, right? They
Yeah.
are mirrored, meaning like they texture
Symmetrical.
half of the character and then they kind of like flip the texture. We don't do that because I want to be able to have asymmetry on my characters. But like there are a lot of tricks that they are using that are relevant to us. So it's like it felt a worthy source of inspiration for me to kind of look into how to build a world that feels coherent without needing millions and millions and millions of assets.
Yeah. It's smart. It's again like VR has come a long way, but it's still, there's limitations, and like you said, there's a lot of tricks that people pull and a lot of interesting things that come from that. Some of the, just games have been built off things that they found like, oh, this just kind of happened in VR. This is, and then they make a game out of it, and it's fun to play. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and as you're sharing all these screenshots, and like I said, I'm playing Dragon Age. It's just like, I'll play Dragon Age, then I'll see a screenshot, and I just like, I'd rather be playing that. Like, I mean, Dragon Age is great, but it's just not in VR. Like I'm still like, still all about VR. Whatever I can play in VR is great. So.
Yeah, we dropped some of the Warcraft capital cities into, was it Pavlov or was that something
Yeah,
else?
Pavlov. We were just running around shooting each other with machine guns in a bat in
In
a world.
Stormwind
Yeah, it's
and
just the coolest thing.
the Undercity, like running around in the green slime shooting at each other. Like those that style of environment's just
Wait,
gonna
wait, wait, wait.
work.
So Pavlov as the Undercity? Wait, I'm not sure I understand.
They're player
People,
made maps, so
yeah,
they
they
Oh,
just
just
drop in assets and make it. It's perfect, and it
they
just
ripped the
feels
whole
so
city
good.
right out. Yeah,
shit.
because you're
I
just
Yeah,
like walking through the gates of Stormwind in VR and stuff, and walking under all the arches and things.
I don't understand how Warcraft doesn't have a VR mode.
I
yeah.
don't.
I've
That
I mean,
boggles my mind.
I would absolutely. I've seen someone run it. Like I've seen someone that modded Warcraft in VR, and obviously the game would not be playable, right? Because you could not fight. Like,
Yeah.
but there are a few things that I've never understood. Like I never understood how Blizzard did not package Warcraft as a single player. Like on top of the like sell me a single player, even if there is no enemies and things like that, but just the world so that I can walk into it and I would buy that.
yeah.
And then put it in VR and just kind of allow me to explore Azeroth in VR. Holy shit, I would
That
be.
would be my
For that
workout
matter,
routine, just walking around.
Yeah.
for that matter, Drakkenridge is kind of like the attempt at that, right? I mean, it's like, hey, I want that kind of fantasy stylized universe, and I want to be immersed in it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's also super open world, so you can literally walk around. You can go back to previous islands. The islands are pretty large, so it feels like an open world walk where you want to walk type of thing, and then do
Nice.
the quests when you feel like it.
Yeah, all the I mean, the most of the islands are bigger than the island of Aleph.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're pretty big.
like our main island is, I don't know, four times the
Yeah.
size.
Yeah, one
Five,
of our islands is 4 times the size of the entire island in Stones Parlat. Yeah,
Wow,
for
that's
sure.
crazy.
Yeah.
and we have five of them. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
cool.
it's a large game. Like the first island is pretty small, like the Skull Island. Like we have one entire island and one entire dungeon that are basically a tutorial. Uh, I know when the game ships, I know that I'm going to get a 1-star review of someone saying, I don't know where the tutorial is. Well, uh, I can point them to this discussion and say the whole tutorial is disguised. Like basically it is a mission. It is the first mission. But it is done in such a way that we know that players don't know the systems. And so we guide them through the quests, through the dialogues and things like that to tell them exactly what we expect them to do. But that's the tutorial. So the whole first island and the first dungeon are basically to teach the player how to play the game. And it's kind of like the first hour. It's a little bit like Half-Life Alyx, right? There is no tutorial, it's the game.
Yeah.
It's just tweaked easy because we know that the players are going to kind of like get their feet wet on this.
I would
Yeah.
rather learn it as like an organic experience. I really don't like it when they're like, here, axe, punch the tree with the axe. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as a developer for you guys, I'm sure like because I like tough like I don't like tough games just to be tough to make it so I can't beat it. But like I like figuring things out. I like, using deduction and that stuff. So just tutorials alone, like you always it's probably a huge decision where you're like, how do we do this? How do we want to do this? Personally, I'd like this, but you know what you said you're gonna get some comments and things like that. It's like, how do you decide to draw the line where you draw it? Like, is it a
I
personal
mean,
choice? Are you trying to just, make sure most people are happy or think it's cool? Like,
Yeah. I mean, for me, at the end of the day, if I don't want to play it, then I'm not going to want to make it.
Yep.
So I know at least I'll have at least one player that likes it if I like it. So therefore, I'm going to make it in such a way that I would enjoy doing it myself. So there you
hmm
go.
well, you said, I mean, it's not really a decision. Um, like we both have like full-time jobs, so it's also kind of like something that we do in addition. So we don't really have the luxury to kind of like we do things that we think are right, with very little, what is the word, tergiversation, very little discussions, right? It's like, okay, this feels the right thing to do. Yeah, I mean, it's like we make what we feel makes sense. Most of the time we agree, and if we disagree, then we have a discussion, and then we try to kind of like hash it out, and then decide who's right. With the understanding that Simeon is the coder, so I mean, most of the time it's like, hey, you know what? I mean, if if you want to make it that way, and you have a strong idea of how you're going to make it, unless there are a few things where I was like, no, 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 it's not happening. But generally, it's like, okay, well, I mean, let's get it done, and then let's move on to the next big thing and the next one. So it's not really like conscious decisions. It's like, okay, well, we know we'll need a tutorial, and rather than kind of like sit down and say, okay, what is the tutorial like and things like that, it's like, no, let's embed the tutorial. Let's build a game from the tutorial and then open up. Because there will be areas like, for example, the climbing that Simeon was talking about. You're not unlocking it right away. Like there may be some areas on the small, like we are going to kind of retrofit it. But they are like, we also know that, oh, there is a climbing side quest. It's happening after the tutorial and things like that. So even that small section here is going to need some tutorialization, or at least a way to incentivize the player. So it's going to be done for a quest. Like you're going to kind of like enter a big city that is kind of far. Like we are talking about an island that is extremely large. So like traversing it from one hand to the next will take several minutes for the player, and then there will be enemies, there will be etc. etc. So once they reach that city, we are going to kind of have a side quest with a guy that tells them, hey, come over. You see those rocks, and then we are going to have like a giant eagle posted. So the guy is standing next to a giant eagle, but there will be the top of a mountain with a giant eagle at the top of that mountain, and the guy was going to say, well, if you can grab a feather of that eagle, all the eagles will consider you their friend or whatever it is. So it's basically you have to kind of like do that kind of climbing challenge to kind of go grab that feather, so that now that feather becomes your passport to use the Eagle fast travel system, which
Nice.
allows you to take an Eagle at one location and it will fly you at other key locations on the island, kind of cutting down your travel time significantly. So if you don't do the quest, then you can still do it by foot. But for the people that do the side quest, they will be rewarded with something cool and something that will actually kind of make. And so my point is that when we are going to kind of go into that climbing challenge, we know that like, okay, this is a hotspot. A lot of players are going to be there and do that. We need to treat that, the beginning of it, almost as a mini tutorial in itself, so that people know what they are doing, and then start challenging them, right? So even kind of like later in the game, it's not like, oh, the tutorial is over. It's like, oh, this is a new mechanic. We need to introduce it so that the player can kind of understand it. So we don't really split the gameplay in terms of like tutorial or not tutorial. It's more like being aware, oh, watch out, players are going to be doing this for the first time. We need to kind of like tell them what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I love the sound of that because that helps keep the immersion. Because a lot of tutorial, like a bad tutorial, really breaks immersion. It's like, I always make an audible sound like, oh, I just deal with it. But that approach sounds a lot better and just more seamless.
Well, and also the thing that I've never liked as a game designer about the tutorials that are kind of like separated from the game is that it's a little bit like when I was a teenager, my parents were like, my dad was really obsessed with like making me financially savvy. And so it was like I would get an allowance, but like I needed to maintain a balance sheet of my allowance and what I spent and blah blah, etc. And if I was not presenting that every week, I would not get my allowance. Uh, and the thing is that it was kind of, I mean, hey, thank you, Dad. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Oh,
Happy
nice.
birthday.
It was great that he thought of like, okay, teaching me this, but like he was also doing this as an age where like I had almost no money. I was living at my parents. And so like there was very little payoff. So you were like teaching me to do something that would be relevant to me in like maybe 20 years. I was not that interested. And with the tutorials, it's kind of the same stuff. It's like you're teaching me stuff and I don't really know why I should care. Uh, so I'm more about like, okay, well, players are about to use this. Let's teach them like the magic wand, for example. Like it's all designed by Simeon and it's brilliant. There is at the end of that uh, facultative dwarf dungeon, which is a smaller dungeon, not the fortress that I showed you, but that kind of cave system that goes under the earth and things like that. There is a boss fight, and there is a big room with a big fight, and once you kind of like vanquish all the enemies, you can grab that wand. And the wand is kind of like peculiar to use. It took me a while to figure it out. I'm sure there are still things that we can kind of like iron out, but like because it's an exotic stuff. And so in order to leave that room, there is a force field, like a magic gate with like targets on it, and you have to kind of like hit them with the wand in order to open that door so that you can move on. So like that's another example of how you can tutorialize something mid-game. It's like, okay, we are giving a new tool to the player. Let's give them space to kind of like manipulate it and have fun with it with no pressure, no enemies and things like that. And then after that, we can like start bringing enemies. So that's another example. Like we tutorialize it right when you're about to do it.
That's awesome because I'm sorry, I keep going back to Dragon Age because that's what I'm playing right now. But like they threw so much right away at the beginning. Like I got 40 hours in. I think I'm 60 hours in right now, and I forgot most of it. And then when I needed it, like kind of what you're saying, like I don't even remember what that was. So I love the like slow progression because it's like let me do one thing, get good at it, and give me something else. Like let me live with it for a bit. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
so, but
completely agree. I have that same issue. For that matter, like I talk about that with my students. Um, there are a lot of like I have a game that I absolutely loved that I started playing like last year, Jedi Survivor, like the second one. Loved the first one, finished the first one. It's the same designers, it's the same team that made Titanfall 2.
yep.
Uh, and Titanfall 2 is one of the best recent first-person shooter that I played. Uh, and there is a lot going on, right? There is a lot of parkour and stuff like that. And I stopped playing the game because I got like sucked up in Drakkenridge and other stuff. And then there are times where I want to go back, but it's like there is no going back because where I stopped playing the game was a particular difficult thing that I was already having trouble. I was struggling to kind of pass it. Having played the game for like 10 hours or whatever, having all that kind of muscle memory and things like that, now I completely forgot all
Uh-huh.
the controls, I forgot everything. And it's like I'm going to go there against a challenge that when I was playing the game daily, I was struggling with. Now I have to restart the game from scratch, basically, right?
Yeah.
So, and in VR, I think it's even worse. There is a big cognitive load on the player already,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming and things like that. And so if we are not super simple, or if we are not kind of constantly reminding players, okay, this is how you do this, we are taking a risk.
Yeah. It also gives us the opportunity to re-inject cool features and interactions at a steady pace that keeps things interesting and makes things more fun overall. So, if we pace it right, which we've been trying to design it at a good pace, right? When you get comfortable with one thing and you enjoy it, then we're like, well, here's one more thing. You want to check this out? And then we introduce that to you and give you some time to learn that. And then you can kind of add that to your repertoire as opposed to having like way too many things and like, oh, which one do I use? I don't know what to do. But if you introduce it at a nice pace, then it increases the fun because then you have more tools in your belt, both metaphorically and physically because we have a belt. But so yeah, it's awesome.
Nice.
We have a dog in game.
And we have a dog.
We
Perfect.
have a
Wow.
dog that you can play fetch with.
Nice.
That's another one of those things that starts out as a side quest but turns into something that you actually really love about the game. Um,
Yeah,
Cool.
one of my dog died
No.
in April, and she was my baby, and I was very very sad. And so when I talked to Simeon, and it's like, yeah, let's put a dog in the game. So now like you can go dungeoning and you can summon the dog. Like you have a little bone hanging at your tool belt, and if you grab the bone, the dog appears. You can throw the bone, the dog will run after it, bring it back to you. It's not like a fighting companion or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
purely cosmetic.
That's
I'll,
fun.
I'll probably be off in under some tree playing with the dog and its bone for hours after the release.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Well, it's a discussion that we had with Simeon today. Uh, so we haven't figured it out yet. We are in the process of figuring it out, but like the question is, what happens when you beat the game? So we have like other islands, right? So if the game does very well and sells very well, like I already have an island planned for an update, like a content update after the game ships. But then we can keep adding content. And the beauty of it is because they are islands, they are kind of like
Mhm.
self-sustaining stuff. We can add the content without having to kind of like revisit the previous one. Like we can add as much as we want. The but aside that, like once you've beat the final boss of Drakkenridge when it ships, what happens to the player? So there is some repeatable content that we have, very similar to the concept of the arenas that we had in Stones of Alaf, but a lot better. I mean, not that the arenas were bad, but it was kind of a wave-based thing. Here we are talking about environments with like placed enemies and etc. that are not part of the main story, but that are still kind of fun and that you can play on repeat.
Nice.
But one thing that I was telling Simeon is like I would like the players to have a spell when they beat the game, an option in their menu that allows them to basically have no enemies and just kind of like be in the world with no enemies, nobody to attack you, and you can go wherever you want. You triumph the big evil, and now the world is good. It's just filled with friendly NPCs, and that's it. And I thought it would be kind of cool. Like, and these are the moments where like, hey, you can go in your favorite island, pick one of the house and role play that it's yours, and then kind of play fetch with your dog in your lawn. Because that's a part of like World of Warcraft. I've never really role played like super hardcore, but there would be moments after a raid. I would just hang in Ironforge and I would go in one of the things
Mhm.
and I would pretend, hey, what if that was my space, right? And I'm
Yep.
leaving the city, and oh, let me go to the bank, and like kind of like just doing stuff just for the pleasure of being in the space.
Yep.
And so I'd like very much our game to kind of like give that to the players once they beat the game. It's still a space where they can chill, just chill.
That's awesome. I like the sound of that.
I go in the Ironforge houses all the time. And I'm like, this one's better than the other one.
Yeah, Iron Forge was like, yeah, when I
Mind
played,
blowing.
it was great. I mean, it was such a social space, right?
Mhm.
I played at long, like I mean, I played World of Warcraft since closed beta. So,
Right.
but when the game launched, I was part of a hardcore guild, alcohol raiding guild. So like we cleared molten core like pretty quickly. And so like one of my great pleasure, like I was my main is a warrior, like I'm a tank. I was the main tank of my guild at the time. And I would just stand on the bridge of Ironforge, decked with my might plate armor and let players inspect it, because oh my God, look, it's epic. Like that was just like a fun time.
Yeah.
Now I'm ultra casual. I still like I have two characters at level 80, but like I don't raid anymore. Like
No,
Yeah.
I don't either. I didn't raid except for Wrath of the Lich King, but
the best.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
that was the best expansion. The some aspect of the Dwarf Island are very what was the name? Grizzly Hills. Yeah, some aspect of the island is quite inspired by Grizzly Hills in Wrath
I
of the.
love the Grizzly Hills.
I mean, every now and then I still kind of go in World of Warcraft, kind of like look how they set up that space. It's like,
Mhm.
I mean, they do a great job at kind of bringing the world to life.
Oh yeah.
And it's a team of like 600 people. We are, well, for 2 years and a half, we were two. Now we are three because we have oh yeah, we just hired a sound designer. Did I say that?
Yep.
Yeah, you said
Yep.
that.
I'm student.
Yeah, I saw that on the website too. I was looking at the game list of games and stuff.
Well, no, so we also have a musician, but it doesn't work in engine. So RetroX, or Matthias, he's still doing the music. He did the music for Tita Legion, he did the music for Stones of Olaf, he did the music for Shock Troops, and then he's obviously doing the music for Drakkenridge. But it doesn't work in engine. But the sound designer that we brought on board is an ex-student of mine, and he's working in Unity. So it's saving me all the sourcing the sounds, making the sounds, placing them, like he's taking care of all of that so that I can focus on the quest design and all that type of stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, no, like as I was saying for World of Warcraft, yeah, their world is really kind of interesting. They always have like some cool stuff to look at. And so we try to, we cannot be as ambitious as they are, but to our level, the islands are also kind of like, we are really trying to have like lots of little areas in the island, even if there is no quest associated with that. Like, for example, on Skull Island, which is the main, the island where you start the game, well, I'll show you. So Skull Island, where's Skull Island? So yeah, Skull Island. So this is Skull Island. That's the tutorial area. As the player, you will be starting right there. You see, look, that's your little belt. So you'll be starting right there, and then you have like obviously an obvious path that take you to kind of like the main city, well, the main little village really, where you will get your kind of quest guys, etc., etc. And then you have like hotspots, right? So you have like a beach here where you will have to kind of defend the village against Fisk Riders attacking. You have the entrance of the dungeon over there, like the big skull, which obviously is the reason why and then here you have like a shipwreck where you will have to kind of like salvage some stuff in order to kind of craft your first item.
Nice.
And then you have like a little fishing booth there with a guy that is being basically troubled by some fish craters. That is a side quest. But outside of that, like there is a place that I like here. Right there, you have a little thing with like a little, awning, a little light, and then a few little crates, etc. This has no purpose to be in game except that I was thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe some players will just kind of look at the sea and sit down there and kind of like, I don't know, take some time to chill. So like I'm trying to kind of like, there is also something that we thought we were going to be using and that we ended up not using, but it's like there is like thing here with like a big room. There is no real reason to go there, but it's there. It's there so that as a player, the space is not just purely utilitarian, meaning like, oh, there is only like the quest stuff, but even if you move around and kind of look around, you're going to find some cool stuff that is just there to kind of be fun and be basically bring the space to life.
Makes you feel lived in and makes you think like, who put that there and why? And then it automatically gives you depth. So love
Yeah, I don't want to kind of go back to be obsessed about World of Warcraft, but remember at the top of the mountain of Ironforge, right?
yeah.
Nobody goes there. You could not, like, you had to cheat your way, like,
Uh-huh.
to go there. But like, they had a thing with like the little encampment and the little backpack and the little flag and stuff like
Yep.
that. Like something that you're not even supposed to see, but it was there because, oh well, it's the highest summit on the map. Someone must have climbed it and kind of left a flag, right? So it's
Yep.
those little details that I really love and that I try to kind of preserve and put back in our game.
It adds some mystery because like way back in the very beginning, PJ and current wife and I we jumped over the hills of Dunmonroe in the north and just
On
sat there. I
the
don't know how long it took. You go over
you
it,
jump
there's like
over
a
from Dunmorrow to from the dam.
yep, not from the dam. No, this would be on the far west
Okay.
of the dwarf, like not the super starting area, but the middle one right
Yeah.
outside of yeah, we go over the mountains, there was a fishing hut. But you couldn't get there unless you did that because you couldn't go from the other side at that point. And we were like, why is the hut here? What is going on?
Yeah, no, they
And
have like lots of little things like that. Now, obviously, we don't have as many, but we tried each map to have like little spaces that are just there to kind of like tell a story and
well, it's exploration players will love it.
Yeah.
yeah, I hope it's difficult, right? Like I don't know, like VR has changed a lot and very quickly, I feel. And it's like
Hmm.
it's when we shipped Stones of Arlaf, I was like, okay, you know what? I feel good. Like I think it's a game that will find its audience and it found its audience. Shark Troops, I thought would do a lot better than Stones of Arlaf, and it did comparatively. So I was a little bit disappointed about Shark Troops. Now I have no idea. Like it's kind of like interesting. Like you go see you go read the comments on Asgard and Batman and it's like people have been. I don't know. Like I'm not sure. I love how demanding
Hmm.
and unforgiving people have become in their critiques. It's like this is
It's
not the game. This is not doing 100% of what I want it to be doing. Therefore, it's shit, right?
yep.
Yeah.
It's like so what we can do is, you know, please ourselves and do what we believe in and hope that the majority of people will agree with us. But I just don't know. Like I don't think I know anymore like what people want. Um,
Yeah, it's like people are toxic just to be toxic. And I like that's another thing like I give you the devs just like I'm still impressed. Like you guys just do what you want to do. I mean, you guys listen, you take feedback. Like you've always like gone in and updated games with all that, but like it's your vision, it's what you wanted to do because that's what you want to see. And it's just insane how people react sometimes. It's like,
yeah,
damn.
It seems like it's hard to know what the players or people would want because the people don't know what they want because especially in the gaming industry in the past decade or so, it's easier to get them by like the flash and the glamour and the promise of a good game and they'll all buy in and then play it for a week and like, well, that's over. So it's kind of
yeah. No,
like,
it's difficult. Like it's kind of interesting, right? Like I was reading some of the reviews of Alien, the latest Alien VR game that shipped, and it's like, okay, well, you're going to shoot a lot of aliens, and then a lot of people are mentioning it's like, oh, it's starting to be kind of like decent, boring, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, at the beginning it's exciting, but then we've been doing it so much that like, and I can completely understand how it's done. Yes, that's we are not in danger of that happening for our game. We have a huge variety of enemies. But like, I'm sure that Survios, when they made the game, they were like, oh my God, like people are going to be so excited shooting aliens. And I'm pretty sure they were not ready to hear, oh, I'm tired of shooting aliens. Give me some androids. Like that's the part that I hated in Alien Isolation. I could do without the android. It's like remove that bullshit, just keep the alien. But here I'm hearing the opposite. I'm hearing people saying, oh, enough with the aliens, give me something else to shoot at. So again, like you do your best and hope that your best is what people will agree with.
Yeah.
Or else, well, then you have a game that tanks. And then that's if that game tanks, there is no more Garage Collective VR games, that's for sure.
That's what scares me because like I've always loved your approach, and that was kind of my next question when we changed topics. Like, your approach is always do fantasy, then sci-fi, then fantasy. So I was gonna ask, like, are you thinking still going back to sci-fi after this? And you kind of mentioned, a smaller size game, but um, yeah, just for small dev teams like that create stuff that I absolutely love, like you guys, like it's scary to me to see some of those comments, and I'm like, shut the hell up. If you ruin this for me, I'm gonna find you, because like you said, like if a game tanks, that's it for some developers. Like that's
Yeah.
that's scary as hell.
I mean, the thing is that if the game tanks, it tanks. It's not like, um, but like we put so much of our time and passion in this that we don't really want to see people like say, "Oh no, I hate it," right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
uh, and the thing is that it's also at the expense of something else, right? So like I started making a board game, I don't know, like 5 years ago, that I never finished, and it's that close to be done. I mean, there are a lot of changes, and it's like, well, I've been sitting on that thing, not finishing it because I've been busy making the VR games. Maybe it's time to kind of like pick back up that board game with Simeon and then make something different, right? Something new. Um, Now, if the game is successful, we built it to be scalable. So we have a lot of content that we want to add. As far as science fiction goes, you're right. I like to alternate. I don't know. I think that I made the sci-fi game that I wanted to make, and that's Shock Troops. Uh, so if I was going to make another sci-fi game, like it would have to be radically different. I haven't thought about it.
Dwarves in space.
Well,
Just kidding.
there are a few things that I would like to do. I would really like to do a cyberpunk kind of setting. But one of the things that I would really like, I thought would be really fun, is to make a 1920s detective, but with gods and monsters, and like a little bit like Call of Cthulhu, but like in like London, or like Victorian London or something like that. Maybe steampunk. Um, but at that point, I think it would have to be a new style. Like I think the pixel art is also something that I've explored enough. Um, and the question is, how can we make it better? Like when I made Theta Legion, that was my first VR game. Um, Then Stones of Olaf was like, okay, well, I'm going to take everything that I learned about Theta Legion and I'm going to make a better game. I'm going to make it look better, be more interesting. So one of the driving factors for Stones of Olaf was like, oh, I want forests and I want like nature and kind of lush nature. Now, unfortunately for Stones of Olaf, when Simeon and I started working on it together, it was meant to be a PC VR game. And then we got approved to ship on the Quest. So we kind of like shifted our whole production to the Quest. And we had to kill a lot of stuff particularly on the environment. Like I had a very, very lush pixel art grass and stuff like that, but there was no way that the Quest 1 could render that. So unfortunately, we had to kind of degrade the environment quite a bit to kind of make it run on Quest 1. Then we shipped Stones of Olaf, and then when I made Shark Troops, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to science fiction, and I'm going to take what I learned on Stones of Olaf and to make those organic, much more filled with items and geometry environments, and I'm going to reapply that to the sci-fi stuff, right? So it was like, and Shark Troops looks infinitely better than Theta Legion. So I made the game better. Okay. Then finish Shark Troops, and then Simeon and I are talking about kind of like Drakkenridge, and the whole goal of Drakkenridge is like, okay, now that we know how to make those things, how can we make a game like Stones of Olaf, but like what we wanted to make and not what we ended up making? Because now we have the Quest 3, it's a lot more powerful, we are much less limited and stuff like that. So again, like the whole idea would be to make something better, right? And making the models and making it physics-based and all of that is like, okay, well, that was not in Stones of Olaf, and that's an improvement, so let's do it. After Drakkenridge, I think we are starting to reach our limit there. Like it's like after Drakkenridge, I don't know like if I can make a game that will look better than Drakkenridge with that style, right?
Yeah.
So it's either like, well, it's not pixel art anymore, or like, but it has to be something different. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah.
am I like
Yeah.
just ranting
Yeah, and
about?
it's, refreshing or whatever you want to call it, your creative juices, doing something completely different, and then, giving that space a rest and just coming back whenever you feel like it, makes total sense.
What about you, Simeon? What would you do after that, ideally?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know. I like the direction that we're going with Drakkenridge with all the physics stuff and the advanced AI that can think for themselves more. And I would want to dig into more of that because we have something that is starting to work really well. Um, with everything from climbing to combat to disarming enemies to the enemies being somewhat intelligent for a game. It's there. We're digging into something that I think can open up a lot. So I would want to dig into that regardless of the theme or the style or sci-fi fantasy. I'm very into the mechanics and the gameplay and the feel of what that feels like. And I think we can, there's a lot there.
Maybe we'll make a Drakkenridge HD, with
HD,
like
yeah.
normal maps and and metals and
For Quest 4 or 5.
So when you guys say you have, if the game does well, you have some plans, you made it scalable to go back and do that. For anything, for any game that have thoughts and ideas, that doesn't come to fruition, like, do you just kind of keep that somewhere in like a notebook and like, if we get back to whatever this fits in, maybe then type of thing? Or, and if so, like, how many notebooks of that do you have?
That's a good question. No, no notebooks. So it's a funny question. Well, first of all, we have Simeon and I have a Trello to kind of manage our timeline and workload and stuff like that. So sometimes those cards were like, okay, we could do this, etc. Well, those cards never get resolved and they get kind of archived into a place where it's like to do later or something like that. The So that would be one space where we would have like unfinished ideas that we may pick up later. For that matter, Drakkenridge started as, if I remember correctly, Simeon pitched me Drakkenridge. Stones of Life was not shipped yet. And I think it was kind of like, oh, if the game sells very, very well, that could be an idea for an expansion pack, right?
I remember where I was standing when we had the conversation because I remember where I was working and I had just finished lunch, I think, and I was looking out the window of the building and I remember we were talking about pirate expansion. We were talking about, yeah, that was good.
So the whole Skull Island was supposed to be an expansion to Stones of Olaf. What we did, instead we did the arenas because the arenas is something that I wanted in the game, but we were not able to kind of like fit it. When we were supposed to work on it, but then as I said, we got approved on the quest. And so what we did instead of doing the arenas, we basically rebuilt the game. I'm not going to say from the ground up, but like rebuild the game for the quest, which took significant amount of work. And so the arenas kind of like fell. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll make them 2 or 3 months after the game ships. And then the Parrot extension, I mean, if Stones of Wrath had sold millions or like whatever, then maybe, but like at the point where we are done with the arenas, and then Simeon had also like life. He was finishing some studies and things like that, so we got busy. Then I got wrapped up into shock troops. But so there is a card somewhere on our Stones of Wrath Trello that has pirate expansion, blah blah. The other part is that I work pretty fast and I tend to not have ideas until I make them.
Mhm.
So that means that if I have an idea, odds are that it's going to be implemented at the very least the beginning of it. I think last time we talked, I told you a little bit how I teach my class, and there is a very important milestone in my classes that's called the beautiful corner. And the beautiful corner is basically something that represents a larger, just a small corner of it, but completely executed, completely at final quality, etc., to get a vibe of this is what we are building. And so most likely, if I had an idea, I would make a beautiful corner out of it. So that means I would start kind of pumping some assets, spend maybe 2 or 3 days on it. And then that means that some of, like, for example, the Orc Island, which was never planned to be shipped, it exists, it's there, it's not finished. But there are like plenty of spaces that are already kind of like their design and things like that. And so it's like, it's there. We are not using it because there is no real way to fit it in the story we want to tell. But if we want to expand the game, we have the beginning of it. So like a lot of these, I just start working on it. And then I kind of like spend, as I say, a couple days to kind of like prototype it. And then it's there, it's available. And then if we want to revive it, it's ready to be worked upon.
Yeah, I remember that we have that master class episode with you, and I love your whole like approach to all that. It's really fun. I re-listened to it a couple times here and there. So that's really cool because it's Wookie and I have had ideas on a lot of things, and it's just fun to talk about. So like when you actually make stuff, like it's just like, I don't know how that would feel like have all these ideas and you don't really bring them to fruition, and do you ever have regrets, or is it just part of the game where you're just continually doing something else, so you're okay with that? So.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we also had like we talked with various companies. At some point, we were talking about getting funding for Drakkenridge. So we are actually like pitches and documentation where we actually listed like, okay, these are the things we can do after the main content chip. So it is also captured there. Those kind of funding discussions kind of went by the wayside, like it just died off, which I think is a better thing because I prefer our approach. Everything is self-funded, but we are completely in control of what we do. There is nobody to kind of tell us, don't do this or do this instead. Like it's like we are masters on board, and that's the only way I would have it anyway. So, but so all of that to say that yeah, there is some documentation, and for that matter, like I'll need to find it, but like Simeon made a whole game design document for Drakkenridge with like drawing what the main island would look like. There were like things with cannons, etc. etc. It has changed a lot since then.
A lot.
Yeah, but it's still there. And we have a game design document also poorly maintained on my end, but that also kind of captures some of those things that may not ever be executed, but they are still kind of captured in that documentation.
Yeah. You talked about like taking notes and notepad and stuff. So I don't have a physical notepad, but whenever I go walking or whenever I go, driving anywhere, stuff will pop into my head and I'll take out my phone, as long as I'm not, actively driving, obviously, and I'll type in the ideas. So I have hundreds and hundreds of lines of, I mean, thousands of lines of ideas. And then as they become like appropriate in our, timeline, I'll see what I can insert and what makes sense and what fits the current plan. So it's always getting integrated,
Nice.
legacy stuff.
Yeah, that's also the other thing, right? It's like if an ID doesn't get integrated, it's because we did not like it enough to integrate it. Like there is nobody to tell us what to do or what not to do. So it's like we're completely in control of what we're creating. So it's like if something we believe in it, then we just do it.
Fair point. So, oh wow, I'm just looking at the time. Um, did I hear right? This isn't game related, but one of your old students who we've had on the podcast numerous times, kind of working with you in some capacity. Is Dima around doing stuff?
Yeah, it was not a student of mine. He was a SCAD student,
Oh,
but
just at the school then?
yeah, yeah, he was
Gotcha.
in animation, and he took some game classes with another professor, Professor Woods, Walter Woods. And yeah, yeah, he's a colleague now.
That's
He
awesome.
teaches. He's been hired as an ITGM professor and as an AR VR professor, so he's across two departments.
Nice.
And so it's kind of fun because, like, for the AR VR, um, I'm also teaching in the AR VR department. For that matter, I'm the one that recommended him to the AR VR chair. And one of the thing we were trying to do is our school works more with Unreal, and since he's an Unreal developer, that's a checkbox right there. But more importantly, I wanted professors to. Our students have like some problems with optimization, and that's kind of normal because they start their career, and then you teach them how to model in Maya and how to integrate those things in Unreal. And there is so many new stuff, so it's like, okay, well, this is how you bring a model, etc. We don't really have the time at the beginning to kind of teach them, okay, well, but this is how you optimize it, right? But the problem with AR, VR, with VR is that, well, a lot of it happens on mobile. And so if it's not optimized, it's never going to run. And so I really wanted us to have a professor that would be an expert at kind of like optimization on Unreal. And so the fact that he shipped Sushi Ben
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, the guy knows what it takes to build a VR mobile game. This is fundamental knowledge that he can bring to our students. So yeah, he was a no-brainer in my opinion, and I'm glad he's a colleague now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
He's
miss
still
our long chats with all those guys and Unreal versus, shit, I'm not even
Unity.
Unity, yeah,
Oh yeah, well I'm the only one. I was the only Unity developer in the group, right?
yep.
Dimo, Leo.
Justin was a Unity fan.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Sushi Ben's great. He's doing well with it and still going
Oh yeah, I
strong.
mean yeah. I don't know if he's selling well, but he's on PSVR. He's like, yeah, I mean, and he's shipping the flat version, which is Simeon and I haven't had that discussion yet. But there is also a part of me that would like to try to see if we could make a flat version for Drakkenridge.
Nice.
It may be complicated because so much of the gameplay of Drakkenridge is VR first, like the
Mhm.
the spell casting, for example, the crafting. Yeah, so I don't even know if it would be working, but
That's tough.
yeah, I mean it's maybe we'll make a different game reusing some environment. I don't know. I don't know. I would like to have like something on the Switch or uh, I've never shipped anything on the Switch. There is
Um,
also like all the arcade stuff. Like
yeah.
I'm very, very into retro stuff. And there are a bunch of machines now that kind of emulate the Game Boy, but that also have a market for indie developers. And I would really, really, really like to ship on one of those platforms.
Do you think like one of your titles like Dark and Under would work on the Switch?
Well, not on the Switch, but so Dark and Under 2, I actually have a color version. Well, I've toyed with, so it's a black and white game because it's on a platform that is only rendering black and white. It's a 1-bit screen. But I've made a declination of it with like 16 colors that would be compatible with a Pico type of like limitation. And yes, I would really, really like. I have like a big collection of. I don't know if you guys can see, but like I have a big collection of arcade games.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, as I said, um, there are a bunch of new platforms. What's his name? Oh shit, I don't remember. I think it's the Palmer Luckey, the one of the guy co-creator of Oculus. I think he
Mhm.
has like it's an aluminum kind of like console that is built a little bit like a Game Boy that can play original cartridges, but that also you can build more modern games for it that are still kind of 2D, etc., etc. And I would really, really like to bring Dark and Under on one of those because none of them have a dungeon crawler, and I love dungeon crawlers. And it's like I would love to kind of like bring Dark and Under to in color on one of those platforms.
Yeah,
Is it the mod retro?
Sorry,
Is it called the mod retro?
the mod retro. Thank you. Yeah, the mod
Yeah.
retro. Yeah,
yeah,
and they have SDK, and I think that their SDK is compatible with Unity. So like definitely something that I want to explore. But I mean, at that point, I think we'll have a talk with Simeon and see what he wants to do as well. I know he really wanted to do the board game. Like that was.
I'm a
I
big
don't know
board
if
game fan.
I don't know
nice.
if that changed, but.
Yeah, I keep going. I've almost bought one of the, I can't remember the name, but the system to play Dark and Under 2 because I would just, again, I love your work. So like, but the fact that, because it's like a choose your own adventure type, right? And kind of a dungeon crawler or,
No, no, no. So, um, no, it's a dungeon crawler. So it's like
oh,
Dungeon
okay.
Master or Eye of the Beholder or Wizardry or some of the early, yeah. So it's a dungeon crawler, like with a maze and that kind of like first person perspective. But what I did is when I did the game, I made also a strategy guide as a pocketbook. Oh, I'll go grab it. Hold on.
So, Simeon, what's it like to hear the guy you work with call something you've made just like a genius or like
Yeah.
phenomenal? So good to hear.
Yeah, well, it's high praise for sure, especially,
Do you only hear that in company? Do you hear that when it's you two? Like,
well, we have a nice balance in our relationship of critique and praise and encouragement. So yeah.
good.
Compliment sandwich.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, I don't critique. I mean, the thing is that he does what he does well. That's why we are working together. So there is very little to critique there. There may be some disagreement sometimes on like some quest or like what was it? There was a thing where we could not agree.
I don't know.
Oh, it's the name of the spell school.
I don't
Uh,
think so. I think we agreed on that.
I don't remember. So yeah, Dark and Under. So that's the book I was talking about, and so that's half of it is a strategy guide
Nice.
that gives you like, for example, so see that this is what the game looks like. But the second half is basically a choose your own adventure. So, but that's the book
Okay.
where like and you have like monsters and like stories, and there is kind of like and not only that, but it's like the fighting fantasy game. So that means that you have a character sheet like Dungeons and Dragons. I'll show it to you. So you have a character sheet, and then in the game we have a dice generator, but you can also play with like pen, paper, and dice. And you will have enemies that you can fight. You have enemies that you can fight in the book, but you also have mini dungeons. I'm trying to find one of them.
Yeah, I see
Uh,
that book's for sale, so I was looking at it.
yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, these are like things that I used to play when I was a kid. Yeah, so this is an example of like a dungeon. So this kind of plays almost like a board game.
Nice.
Like you kind of like find your way, and then you have like enemies that are going to be random. You have like loot that are going to be random. So there is kind of like a mix of like choose your own adventure and a little bit of a board game element. I had a lot of fun writing this. It's
Yeah, it looked really cool. Because I was, we were talking about Lone Wolf Saga, and I've been playing on the app because I got into that, as a bedtime thing, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't know I needed like paper and a pencil. I'm like, so the app was really nice, but I'll be damned if I've gotten through it yet. Like, I die a
um,
lot.
yeah, the Lone Wolf series is amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm probably on my 50th try, and I'm still enjoying it. So
I'm going to show you a rarity.
I didn't know what you guys were talking about for a moment. Never
it's
seen those
just a
books.
choose
Do you
your own
know,
adventure books.
do you know
Okay.
this?
Uh-uh.
Black Baron. So this is early 80s. Um, this is the ancestor of the first person shooter.
Hmm.
Wow.
So the whole book, there is no words, it's just images. And basically, you have a map and you decide where to go, and you go to the page that shows you the right labyrinth and things like that. And there is an enemy that is hunting you as well as you're moving around. And you're kind of fighting. So it's kind of like a dungeon crawler, like a visual dungeon crawler. Like I've been kind of analyzing the system because at some point I want to go replicate it to kind of at least understand what makes it tick because it's quite complex. Like there is a good amount of like I would like at some point to make one thing like that. I thought that's super cool.
That
A
looks
lot of
really cool.
ingenuity there. How does that? My brain is broken. How does that even work?
Well, the map is relatively simple. The thing that is quite bluffing is how they integrated the enemy hunting you. And so you have like some sort of a condition board um, based on where you're going. The enemy is going to try to kind of flank you. And that's going to send you based on where you are to kind of like so you have some pages that are duplicate, right? So
Mhm.
let's imagine that you're arriving facing a wall, then there may be like the wall without the enemy, and then on another page there will be the wall with the enemy. But so the map is very simple. It's not a big space, but it is a book. It is a first person shooter book, right? And the funny thing is that so that's the Black Baron. But you could play against a friend, and so you had like the White Knight, I think was the other one. And so both players, like here, you can play solo, but you can also play against a friend because it's the same space, but they are playing the White Knight, you're playing the Black Baron, and then you're using the book to kind of like decide like where you're meeting, where your encounters are, and how
Wow.
you're going to fight and stuff like that. It's quite a clever system. I barely digged into it. It's obviously a lot more complex to set up than a choose your own adventure book, but something that I'd like to kind of play with at some point.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
People have been clever, like in making games. It's kind of funny. My first game, I made it using Flash. And I was using Flash because I was a web developer. So like I would use Flash for work all the time. And
Mhm.
then I realized it's like, hey, you know what? I can code interactivity on websites and things like that, but I can also make a game with this. And I started kind of divesting like Flash from making websites to kind of making games instead. And so I think like people from super early, they've been kind of looking at stuff and say, how can I make that fun? How can I make that pleasant? And they've used the technology that they had, like these guys, they were using books. Kind of cool.
And it looks like almost like you're watching or flipping through the pages of like a Doom. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
first.
that's
I mean,
crazy.
it's not a shooter because you're not shooting, but you're shooting magic. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
a first-person shooter. But before, like, I don't remember what the date the publisher. I think it's 81 or 82, something like that. And then so that's an example of like, I don't know if I can get close enough to the camera.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so all of these have like meanings. It's as I said, it's quite complicated. I would not be able to replicate it. I need to analyze like the system behind it, but I would not do it like that, but potentially I would write another choose your own adventure book, and I would have a section that would just use that, right? I don't think it's worth making a full book out of this. This is I have it because it's very rare. It's very difficult to find now, and this one is a pristine
It
copy.
looks
And
pretty.
um,
Yeah.
well, I still have, like, you were talking about
You said it
the
was rare and from the 80s, and you're sitting there flipping through it and showing us photos. I'm like, don't crease the spine.
Bending the pages.
Yeah.
oh,
We're
no,
not worth it.
don't worry. So see this. That's not the wolf. This is the lone wolf. That's the French version. That's the one I had when I was a kid.
Nice.
So that's my book when I was 12, and it's still pristine, right? Like my books, I don't bend them more than a certain, like, it's my books are like super, super, like there is still, if I'm not mistaken, on the character sheets. Well, you won't be able to see it on the camera, but there is still my writing as a kid.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
So yeah. Well, that's the perk of being a old dude, is that I've seen a lot of shit.
And you've kept it in mint
Yeah, that's
condition.
a nice little time machine.
Yeah, I don't know if it's there. Oh shit, where is it? I still have my first computer. I don't know where I put it. Oh, it's there. I think it's there. Yep.
Wow, it's smaller than I thought.
This is my first computer ever. Black and white, 1 kilobyte of memory, and you could plug an additional thing that would be almost the size of the computer itself, so it would double the size. That was a 16 kilobyte cartridge. You would plug that on a black and white TV, and to save your what you programmed or your games and things like that, you would run that on a tape recorder. So in
Wow.
order to load a game, for example, you would play the tape and you would hear, like, those sounds like boop, and you would load a game for like 5 minutes, and then you would play it, and then you would save it on a tape, and then you would have like a library of tapes with like all your code on archive on it. And
Wow.
so that's my, like, I was 6 or 7 when I had that. It belonged to my dad first, and then he kind of passed it to me. But
Nice.
yeah, so
Yeah, I've never seen one of those.
Me either.
yeah, it's an English computer. It's a ZX81. It's made by Sinclair, which was very famous for making the next version of that, was called the ZX Spectrum. And you may have seen it on Twitter because they just reissued. So the Spectrum had color. This one was pure black and white. The Spectrum had color, and they remade the Spectrum with, like, you can buy it, and like it has like 50 games on it, and some of those games are classics. Um, there was an American version. I'm trying to remember. I think it's the TRS 80. I think your version was the TRS 80 that was made by Tandy, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
But then after that, you had the Commodore 64, which was obviously like, and I had after this one, I had a Commodore 64, and then I had an Amstrad, then I had an Amiga, and then, but yeah, this is my original computer.
That's awesome.
Now, I believe in the first episode of that old IT Crowd show, when they're like, the Jen lady comes in and Moss is like, she wasn't even impressed by that original ZX81 on the shelf. That's pretty sure that's what he said in there. Now I've seen one.
Yeah,
Say.
it was cheap. It was my dad is a civil engineer, so he's always been into kind of like computers and like tech. So we always had tech at home. But it was rare to have a home, in like, I think we bought ours in 81. There were not that many people that had computers at home in 81. And I made a game for it. For that matter, again, my dad is at the origin of plenty of things. I wanted to play games, right? I was 6 or 7, and he was like, "Okay, But it is like for every hour that you spend playing a game, I want you to spend an hour learning how to code. Like that was his deal. It's like you can play games all we want as long as you learn how to code. So it's like, okay. So I learned basic so that I could play games.
Cool.
Motivation. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, now he's like, he hasn't tried like any of my VR games. He's not. My parents are not really into video games.
Hmm.
Like Simeon's mom tried the climbing challenge.
Oh,
True.
nice.
She enjoyed it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I was we were talking about how immersion in VR can sometimes take you by surprise when you're the first time you do it and you forget that you're in a physical space outside of what you're
Yeah.
seeing. And so we were talking about different games that do that, and I mentioned the zip line that we've integrated, and she wanted to try it out because she's one of those people that isn't afraid of heights. Actually, she like loves heights and loves roller coasters and everything. And so I had her try it out, and then she did the rock climbing. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Get her in that mine cart when it's ready.
Yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
think this summer when I go to France, I'll bring a VR headset with me and I'll have them try, but like they'll try it for like 2 minutes and they'll get sick. They'll get like it's not going to be. It's not. It's that's not their thing.
Yeah.
Flat screen version.
No, but
I'm just
they
kidding.
don't game.
I'm just
They don't play at all. Like it's not their generation. They don't understand it. They don't like it. For that matter, I think they kind of learn better now, but like for a long time, like I've made a lot of games. I've made a lot of games. I made like well above 50 games. Uh, and some of them were like famous. I mean, not famous, but like some of like Lost Outpost, which was the last 2D game that I made. We totaled more than 18 million players.
wow.
So it's a big thing. And my parents would not say work. They'd say that I play with my computer. It's like, no, I don't play with my computer. I'm actually making a game, right? It's serious business. But it's like, no, oh, you're playing with your computer again? It's like, no, I'm not playing with my computer. I'm working. It's not the same thing.
I played for an hour and then I worked for an hour. You should know this.
So yeah, no, yeah, it's not their thing. The art books, they get the art books. So but we'll have a Drakkenridge art book.
Nice.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be massive. Because there's a lot to talk about, and I want to kind of cover the quests, and I want to kind of cover the lore. Like there is a whole bunch of stuff that I want to
So
do.
for this Christmas, because we have Christmas coming up, you can get yourself the Dark and Under book, right? That comes along with that. And for next Christmas, you can put on your list the Drakkenridge art book.
I would love that because I have the Shock Troops book that Cyril sent me, and I just moved, and I want to put that like out so
Wow,
I
that's
can
great.
just take a peek at it every now and then. It's just fun to look at. So
Yeah, the well, I mean, and Drakkenridge because it's an RPG. Well, I don't want to say it's an RPG because it's an adventure game with quests and puzzles and things like that. Like it's really the good type of game to make that type of book. Like because
yeah,
we can make a lot of like maps, tips and tricks and like
And we have
stuff.
so many characters. I mean, there's gonna be lots of pages of just awesome. I mean, what do we have?
We
Like
have
50, 60 characters so far? Like seriously,
Wow.
yeah we have a lot of
we have a
characters.
lot of characters.
We are about to start the voice acting, and that's going to be brutal. Fun fact. The reason why, so I hired that student, that sound designer, and he's going to kind of help with the sound design, but like he's going to do half sound design, and the second half is going to take over the voice acting, the direction and the recording and things like that. I've been so so burnt by the comments on Stones of Olaf, everybody kind of despising, and I kept explaining to people, it's like, guys, it was during the pandemic. There was no going in a sound booth locked with someone and record stuff. Like everybody was at home. So like Stones of Olaf, it's my wife, it's my neighbors. I mean, it's like it's whoever was close by, right?
yeah,
But I understand that, I'm French. Maybe there are some subtleties of your barbaric language that.
I remember you. I think it was the first time you were on the podcast. You were talking about that, and I'm like, I found it charming. Like I thought. I mean,
I found it charming
I
too, but
thought it
like
was.
I know the people, so I was like maybe I'm tainted by the fact that I know who's. Listen, like it was almost universal, right? Like there is uh, dozens and dozens of comments that are like, "What the fuck is going on with with the voice acting?" So the reviews mentioned it. I know. And I like I played sometimes to my students. It's like, like, hey, it's like I tell them, listen, I spend a whole bunch of time critiquing your work and telling you what you're doing wrong. Let me show you when I fuck up. So
What did
this
they
time,
say?
I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a real American and a sound professional handle the voice acting and feedback and make sure that it's
Well, you just let us
sounding.
know.
But no, if you want to be voice actors, like we'll pay people. But yeah, no, we are going to be recruiting. It's going to happen soon. Like I need to finish. I have like the main general story beats. It's defined, it's agreed upon, and things like that. I just need to write all the quests. And so it's going to take me, I don't know, like a couple of weeks. But in January, mid-January, we'll start kind of like tapping into people that we know and people that we don't to kind of like find voice actors.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you have a part for like an enemy, so and I could do the right voice for it, and then I could play the game and kill myself, that'd be awesome.
All right. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
enemies is not what concerns me because they don't speak much.
Yeah.
It's more like,
We do have one enemy so far, though, the pirate captain, because remember he
yes.
says those two lines, he taunts you a little bit, and then, I mean, hey.
No, we'll have enemies that speak, like the necromancer at the end of the sewers will speak. The dragon, we have a dragon.
All right.
The dragon will speak. But it's mostly NPCs. Like we have a lot of quests, and we have a lot of dialogue that is planned. So that's where we'll need people. We'll need like lots of people for that because
Wookie
we have.
does a mean Murloc voice.
Oh, you can do the feast riders. We'll need feast riders. Like I hate the way the feast rider sounds in Stones of Art. I'm not happy with that.
Hmm.
They are way too high pitched. Like I wanted feast riders are my Morlocks, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
are absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure Simeon can also make a voice. Like I mean, we'll still tap into family and friends, but this time the person that will be in charge of validating what sounds good and things like that will not be me. It will be someone qualified.
Nice.
But like you said, you were resourceful during the pandemic, so
Yeah, no, it was
you got to
like,
do
yeah,
it.
well, I mean, it's kind of funny because like, like I have all of those friends that just kind of told me all of those horror stories of like their life during the pandemic. And like I mean, some of my friends live in Paris, New York, and things like that. It's like I mean, like in Paris, for example, like there was like a lot, like people could not even get out of their house. Like cops would send you back home. Like it would be enforced. Like you would have curfews that would be enforced by the police and stuff like that. And then while people were kind of living that, Simeon and I, well, I don't know about Simeon, but me, I'm living right next to a park, so I would go walking every day in the open. I was teaching online, but lost the commute, and so we at the end, like when the pandemic was stopped, we had made a game. Like no wasted time. We kind of like really maximized. Like, oh, we are stuck at home. Well, let's make something
Yeah.
worth it.
Yep.
So like the pandemic to me, it was like at the end of the day, we made tons of life during it. So it was productive.
Yeah.
There was one curfew, I think, where we were around. I don't know if it was statewide or whatever, but wife and I are kind of homebodies anyway, so we didn't really know. We forgot there was a curfew, so we drove out to go get food, and like the whole town was pitch black, and there was like no people. And I was like, this is great. Like, and then I was like, no businesses have their lights on. I was like, it's a curfew. So then we had to sneak back home.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like I've always
Here.
thought that I was an extrovert, and I am. But the pandemic kind of like allowed me to discover my introvert side.
Mhm.
And so after it was done, like I had kind of almost a backlash where I was like, I'm tired of seeing people. It's like I want to go back to like the
Yeah.
That's
I had a little bit of a reacclimatation, kind of like I kind of like enjoyed like being kind of like working on my game with Simeon, and I was with my wife and my dogs, and as I said, I had a park, but like no distraction. Like it was a time where like I was like focused, like I've rarely been able to be. So I enjoyed working on Stone Level after the pandemic. It was a lifesaver.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, same.
yeah, I can definitely be outgoing with social when this situation calls for it, but I would much rather not be.
Yeah, I have that same duality where it's like I can be, but it's like if I can't, I'm perfectly fine being just by myself.
Yep. Yep. I was actually in Japan in May
Oh,
and I was out there. I just rented a car. Never been there. Don't speak Japanese. Girlfriend does, but she wasn't always in the car with me. I was middle of the night driving around, talking to people, and it was
yeah,
great. But then my battery was done.
yeah. No, it's and you went there for how long?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. Yeah, it's a part of our bucket list with my wife. We want to go to Japan and want to go to New Zealand. So I think we are going to New Zealand next year.
Nice.
That
We
would
were
be on my
actually
list too. But
we were actually supposed to be going this summer, but because of the launch of the game, I asked my wife to push it by 1 year because in case we have to do a quick patch or something like that, I just wanted to make sure that I would be available. But New Zealand, because of the Lord of the Rings, obviously, we are both like mega fans,
Nice.
and we want to do
yep.
that while still young and still can move around and climb mountains and
And zip line, right?
and
Zip line.
and zip line.
There's a pretty convincing Hobbit hole Airbnb in Virginia I've stayed at a couple times. Like the guy built it into the wall and he's got a little ferry you
Yeah.
can kind of rope yourself onto his little pond. He's got some walking trails. It's gorgeous up there.
Oh yeah. If you find the links, send them to me.
Oh yeah, I got it.
We use we we have a wedding anniversary in August. It's going
Congrats.
to be it was 25 years this year. And so in August we have that tradition to kind of book a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Uh,
It's right up there, yeah.
yeah, with the dogs and just kind of spend like 3 or 4 days just like lost in the mountain, in the forest and things like that, just by ourselves. But a hobbit hole would be kind of a nice change.
I'll get
So
you the link as soon as I can. He's booked out a lot, so we were just able to get a couple cancellations. But he's got like a
it's
workshop with a forge and stuff, and
shit.
it's nice.
I want to try that, and it's something that we don't have any problem like booking it a year in advance.
Right.
We know exactly when the wedding anniversary happens. So
Yep.
now
It's gorgeous
maybe
up there.
the worst part of that is that I'll go there. And then it will give me tons of IDs, and I'll be like, "Shit,
Yeah.
I'm done with Drakkenridge."
After the first patch.
Yeah. Well, we have so many things we can do with Drakkenridge. It's like it's almost unlimited, right? Like there is a whole world. Like I wanted to have like some sort of an Amazonian forest with like some kind of like Aztec and Mayan architecture and things like that. Like it's just or big city, like medieval Paris or medieval London, or like an expensive city with like lots of like political intrigue. Like there is like, if the game meets its audience, we have an unlimited amount of stuff we can do with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Awesome.
So maybe Hobbit holes can come back during an expansion.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
As you
when
know,
is
dwarf
what's
stuff is the best. So I'm very excited.
Oh, the dwarf stuff, yeah.
so if all goes like, do you guys have like a target window? You know,
Yeah.
awesome.
June 26th.
Wow.
Our window is that day. Yeah.
Don't know if it'll be
Well,
morning or evening, but you know.
no. We know exactly it will be 12. I mean, at noon. Like it's the
Yeah.
so when you work with Meta, like you have to. And so I don't know. Like I don't talk to them much because we've been busy working on the game, and they get busy themselves as well. Like the person that is our product rep is also the product rep on Demeo, on like they do fast. She does fast travel games. She does
Hmm.
end dreams. She does like so, like I try to stay away out of her hair. Like I just communicate to her when I have like important stuff to kind of share. So I don't know if it's like since the changes on the store, like how that changes. But for Stones of Our Life and Shock Troops, like basically you had to be approved by Meta to kind of launch on their store, and you would book that store date like a year and a half before. Like you would book that store date at the moment you started working on the game, basically. So they would greenlight it, and then they would kind of work with you to kind of like find a good period to launch. I know that I have a soft spot for the summer because there is not much else happening, and so it allows us to have a little bit visibility. Like imagine like Drakkenridge that ships the same day that Batman, Arcane, Batman, Gotham. Like it's like, well, we are fucked.
Yeah.
So like, I know if we ship in June, like the odds of us kind of like competing against a flagship product are almost non-existent. So we picked that date last year. So we know when our like Meta pays for our QA, so it's passed to kind of like a Canadian company. So we know when our QA is starting, and starting like April 10. So that means that the game needs to absolutely be completely finished and wrapped up by April 10. Then we have like basically a month and a half of QA, and then after that we just wait for the launch.
That's awesome. That's smart. That's a great window, like you said, to get visibility because there's normally historically not a lot coming out there. So
And it's also kind of easier to get like, I don't know, like YouTubers and the press to kind of talk about the game because they are like starved for like news and things like that. So like it gives us a little bit of an edge.
yeah.
The part that I don't like about that means that QA happens during the spring quarter, which is a very, very busy quarter for me. So it's very stressful because this is where I teach all my capstone classes in spring. So I'm already kind of managing my students' projects, and I usually have a fair amount. And then on top of that, so when we did Stones of Our Life, it was relatively easier because it was during the pandemic. So I was like, but for Shock Troops, it was a little bit more demanding, and I'm terrorized at like what's going to happen this spring because I'm a lot more involved with my students. They need a lot more direction, maybe than previous batches and things like that. And it's like, and I'm going to be busy. Like, so I'm expecting like 3 months of hell. April, May, June is most likely going to be really, really stressful.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
I
after
just
that, your game comes out, and then you refresh the comments to see if people like it, right?
I just took
Or
that day off work on my calendar, so
Yeah, you did.
and that's 2 days after Wookie's birthday, so I'll have to buy 2 copies.
Hey.
It's not multiplayer yet.
Yeah.
we could have a simultaneous playthrough launch party.
Hey. Yeah.
If the game was massively successful, right? Like, but massively successful, then the next thing I would want to do is to turn it into a multiplayer collaborative game because I
That'd
think
be
that some of the
nuts.
dungeons would be a lot of fun with friends.
It looks like it.
Having done some multiplayer stuff before, you take how much work you think that's going to be and you double it.
Oh yeah,
You-
no, same. I've done some. Well, I done like I've done an MMO with Ubisoft, and it was
Yeah.
absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. If it's colossal, like very successful, that
Yeah.
means that we can hire
Right.
Yeah.
people to kind of like do that and just kind of like, because right now we don't manage, like we just do, like I do the art, he does the coding and the design. It would be nice if the game is successful to kind of like build a team to kind of like really service it. And so that we are not end up like swamped like we are every time because we do everything.
Big undertaking.
Yeah.
That's the reason why like I'm excited about having that student Logan to take care of the sound, because it's something that I've done for all the other games, and it always come last. And last means that's the moment where I'm like the most busy and the most stressed. And it's like, so here like we have someone that's kind of starting the sound early enough that there is still kind of time for iteration and stuff like that, and that kind of frees me time to kind of focus on stuff where my time is better spent.
Nice.
Yeah, it's such an important aspect, and I don't think a lot of people get to spend enough time on it. It's just one of those, I mean, of the many facets, but it's emotion, it's connecting you to the actions and everything. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure like Simeon would enjoy having like a coder, for example, so that he could focus more on design. So again, like if the game is successful, we'll build a team and then we'll keep kind of pumping content. And it's true, like I know it's going to happen. Like in the comments we are going to, "Ooh, when is a multiplayer mode coming on?" Right? I know it's happened. It already happened on Sons
yeah,
of Ice. It already happened on Shock Troops, right? There are some people, it's like you're giving them this and you're saying it's a single player game, right? And then their first comment is like, "Why is it not multiplayer?" It's like,
right.
dude,
They
I'm
just
giving
don't
you something,
understand.
I'm giving you something red, and like it's like, "Oh, I wish it were blue."
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's often like, I don't think PJ was referencing multiplayer when he said he'd have to buy me a copy. And you're like, it's not multiplayer. Like your
No, but
reaction, instant reaction.
there is PTSD there. It's
Yep.
like,
Oh, we've heard every dev we've ever talked to, like basically what Simeon said, like at least double your workload with anything. Yeah, like it's crazy. And
but
that's
no,
that's
it's
what
not just.
gamers don't get. Like they don't really understand the work and the sweat and the blood that you guys put into this stuff. And
Well, I mean, in multiplayer, what people like fail to realize is that not only it's a lot of work, but it's also very hard work, because the art of multiplayer lies in how you can predict what's going to happen when you lose some packets, etc., etc. Because the last thing that you want is like having enemies or other players kind of zipping
yeah,
all around, right? So you need to kind of like you need to anticipate and be like, oh, that player is moving on that vector in that direction. In case you lose some packets, you're going to have to take over and kind of like basically pretend that. And so this is super, super, super difficult. So yeah, it's like.
Things
But
are
you know
getting
what? Like, let's imagine that Drakkenridge. Like, let's dream. We sell 5 million copies. If we sell 5 million copies, we have a multiplayer mode.
Yeah, it's like in a Kickstarter, you have different
Yeah.
levels. Like if we reach this amount, that's
Yeah, it's our what is it? Extended goal or whatever.
yeah,
yeah.
stretch
Stretch
goals.
goals. Stretch goals.
If they reach this, we get the developers get to take a nap. Like that's never
That'd be
focus
nice.
for the players, but
Doesn't matter. The game sells. The game doesn't sell. I will take a nap.
well, like
See, that's healthy work-life balance right there.
Yep.
right.
See, the, the, the,
It's
the the thing is that if it sells well, I'll take the nap on a bigger bed. Made out of gold.
that would be really uncomfortable unless you
Only the
like.
bed frame is made of gold, not the
Oh, okay. I
mattress.
was
But I
gonna
heard
say,
that gold is a soft metal. I'm a tough,
yeah,
I'm a tough guy. I'm like a dwarf.
You're like a dwarf, yeah, yeah.
there you go.
I
I mean,
mean,
I sleep on
Scrooge
the floor
McDuck could
anyway.
do it, so
Yeah, I really hope that by the time we arrive on the store, like that whole kind of situation has been fixed, because I'm very, very worried about it. But there's
yeah.
not much I
Here's hoping for that. But I do think games are a little too easy to get into for people now. Like the accessibility is great, the market's bigger than ever, but it's that entitlement. Like you don't remember having to blow into your cartridges. You don't remember having to like PC games are still PCs are PCs, but you have
Yeah,
to jump through hoops to get your game to run back in the day. Like
Well, and more importantly on the store, the problem of discoverability, right? Because now
Yeah.
you're flooded with like
Yeah.
uh like when we ship Stones of Alaf, like we were on that kind of like for a full week on that kind of like featured spot.
Mhm.
But then for like a full month, almost kind of like there were no competing products. So people would just kind of like buy this plate and then, the game is relatively short. So you would kind of like beat it and then be ready to move on to the next game. But now it's like everybody's kind of coming at the same time.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's easy to kind of like, it's easy to get unnoticed and it's easy to get forgotten.
Yeah.
That would be terrible that we get forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while. You think they'd have figured some of that out, but that's still kind of one of the weak points, it seems. So,
Well, I think they reacted to kind of like a demand where people were complaining that, I mean, I'm not going to complain. Like we got approved when I made Theta Legion, we got approached by Meta and they were like, okay, we would like to kind of get some of your games on the Quest. Theta Legion did not happen on the Quest, but Stones of Wrath did. Um, so we went through the approval process pretty smoothly. But I know like I have some devs that kind of like pitched two, three, four times and they got rejected every time. And it's like, and so they are seeing that thing and it's like, okay, there is a platform, I know how to develop for it. I could ship a game on it, but I cannot get on it because nobody's kind of like validating me. That's frustrating. The problem is that now it's kind of a pendulum, right? It was kind of like too extreme in one thing, and I think that the pendulum movement is too extreme in the other direction. And I think that they are kind of going to try to find a balance. What I hope is that they find that balance before we ship.
June 23rd.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, they when we shipped Stones of Alaf, I think we were the first game that they offered to pre-order. I think it's
Hmm.
Stones of Alaf was the first game that was available as a pre-order. So it was
Wow.
people could pre-order it a week before. Um, Now, their system was not built for it at all. Like it was completely new. They've never done it before. But I got very frustrated because it's like, okay, they put our game for sale like a week prior, but I have no way to track the pre-order. So I had no idea until a month after we shipped how many people actually pre-ordered the game because we had to wait for the sale that happened at the end of the month.
Wow.
I'm sure now that they have like much, much better tracking tools. So that what I'm saying is that it's the store. I think it's something that they are figuring it out as they go. And they've done a pretty good job so far. So I'm just going to kind of hope that when we ship, we get discoverability and we get in the hands of players.
Yeah. Do you think having shipped a couple successful games like helps on their end, like promote a little more or give you a little more visibility or
On
not?
Meta's end, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, I don't know. I don't know how much they take that into account.
I mean, they do. Like for Shock Troops, they kind of give us some money for like advertising on like Instagram and they help. I mean, really, like the relationship with Meta is super nice. Like I have no complaint at all. They help however they can. They actually hired an advertising agency to kind of do the com and the trailer on on Shock Troops. The problem is that I did not like the trailer that he actually did. So I ended up like remaking my own trailer. Um, and I apologize. And it's like, but the thing is that they made a trailer, but like they were not paying attention. Like the trailers were focused on like what the player was doing, but most of the time the head was down. So we had a trailer
Mm.
with a lot of like shots of like the ground, and it's like, dude, like I spent so much time making cool environments. I want to show them in the trailer, right?
Yeah.
And I want like the player to make sure that you're looking towards the horizon, that you're not always kind of focusing on your hands. And that's something that I did not know until I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my God, this is not working for me for that reason. At that point, since, it was a gift, I mean, I'm not going to ask the agency to redo it. So I'm just going to redo myself, and I use their trailer for like smaller, shorter, condensed on YouTube and on Instagram and stuff like that. So it was used. It's just the main trailer. I ended up redoing it. But yeah, no, they help. I mean, I think the fact that we shipped on time for both games. We cleared QA with 1 week earlier. So we still had a week, but we had cleared everything. So Stones of Life, maybe it was 2 weeks for Stones of Life.
Yeah, it
I
might
don't.
have been.
It was 2 weeks for Stones of Life, 1 week for Shock Troops. So like, we are easy to work with. The game's sold correctly. I mean, it's not Batman or like Asgard's Wrath or things like that, but for like the size of the team and the size of the project, it sold very honestly. And they know we can ship a game that is relatively bug free. So yeah, they trust us. I don't know how much it's. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they offer stuff to kind of like be more discoverable, or if they change the store so that it is back at being more discoverable. I don't know. Like, we'll have that discussion with them once we are about to ship. But right now we are so busy on other stuff that it's like, I mean,
Yeah, it makes
I
sense.
also want them to play the game, right? It's like, okay, well, play it, and then you'll see that it's kind of worth promoting.
Pin it to the front page. Forget about it. Just leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, and I will also kind of like, do the usual kind of like thing with like contacting, the YouTube reviewers, Upload VR, Road to VR never talked about us. I don't know what, like, Road to VR never talked about Tita Legion, never talked about Sons of Our Life, never talked about Shock Troops. At least Upload VR covered the three games. So that also helps a lot.
Yeah.
And then I may also kind of inject some personal money to kind of like build a advertising campaign.
I might do it. I get them influencers on it.
Well, I mean, one would assume that I would be a pro at that, right? I spent 20 years of my life in advertising industry.
Yeah. But again, just another example, like how much, like you guys wear, I've said it many times, like you guys wear so many hats, do so many things just to get the game out. Like it's insane. And
Yeah.
when it goes well, it's awesome. But when it doesn't, it's just like it hurts.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a full-time job. I mean, it's like I have basically two full-time jobs. It's particularly like the social media, it's like it's so easy for me to kind of get wrapped up into my dungeons and then forget to post. And then like sometimes I kind of like go back on Twitter, for example. It's like, holy shit, like I haven't posted in a month. I better find something to say. So, but the closer we are getting to release, the more I have to share. So it becomes kind of easier to kind of generate content and kind of like keep people in the loop. But Twitter, I don't know what you guys think. Like my engagement has completely tanked. So first of all, like in a space of like 2 or 3 weeks, I lost like almost 100 followers. And my metrics are completely like it's a shadow of the engagement that I had like a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand social media. Like just with Twitter, like I haven't lost any followers, but we also like this is our first episode in over a year. This will be our first one. The last one was Dima with Sushi Ben when it released. Um, but I not daily, but couple a week we still have, new devs reaching out and, hey, can we want to come talk? And it's like, we're not really doing anything right now, but I gotta do play testing for some people and offer opinions and all that fun stuff. But like I'm just like trying to help the devs get words out because somehow some people are still like looking at us and it's like, oh shit. So like I'll retweet and make some vids and do all that stuff, but I don't understand it at all. So
Yeah, no, I'm maybe I understand it a little bit better, but not by much.
yeah.
It's like the Dima is doing a bang up job. Like he's constantly tweeting. It's like
Yeah.
and I just don't have time to do that. It's like it's
That's
not.
again another full-time job, another hat you got to wear. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
And yeah, like I said earlier, I fell off the face of the Twitter planet. I don't remember
Well,
how
I mean,
much I posted.
it has like a whole bunch of controversies. Like Twitter has become a controversy machine.
Yeah.
So that's also another thing. Like I used to have an algorithm that would just push me like game stuff and pixel art and stuff like that. But the algorithm has changed, and so I'm just now being pushed stuff. It's like, and it's kind of like a little bit like doom scrolling, right? It's like you're not
Mm.
really interested, but you kind of want to check it out. So and it kind of like becomes that kind of like cycle of like toxicity and people just being generally unhappy, right? And I'm not saying, oh, it's these guys versus these guys. It's like they are all bad.
Yeah.
And that's where it's easy just to like walk away and just like I don't want any part of that, but you kind of have
Well,
to.
Yeah, yeah. So in Blue Sky, I have like no followers at all. So it's like it's not really picking up. Yeah, I don't know. Like 2025 is going to be interesting. Like right now, I don't really want to think about it because I need to finish the game, I need to finish the content, which is happening between this week and next week. But coming into 2025 in January, I'm going to have to kind of seriously start thinking about, okay, we need to pick up like the pace on social media and start kind of like getting the word out that the game is coming out and stuff like that. And um, people have told me, oh, you need to go on TikTok. I don't even own TikTok. Like it's like, but like maybe I will have to kind of create a TikTok account and start making like short videos of like our character doing like little cute dances. I don't
yep.
know. I have no
Well,
idea. Like this is going to be like something that I'm going to have to figure out, but I'm going to have to figure it out pretty quickly because
some
uh
more people have said like they'll go on YouTube and then like Twitter and then TikTok. And YouTube and Twitter won't do much, and then they'll get like 4 million TikTok views.
yeah, but
And
the
it's like,
problem with TikTok is that it's a little bit like Reddit to me. It's like
yeah,
I don't go on Reddit because it's like I know that there is that kind of like things can swing so fast, and it's like things can go viral when you want them to go viral, but they can also go viral for the wrong reason. And it's like I think TikTok, you need to understand the codes of what works on TikTok. I think
right.
what will happen if I decide to go on TikTok is I will invite Dima and I will be like, okay, come to my house. I will feed you for a night, and I will pick your brain, and you will give me an accelerated course in like zeitgeist, right? It's like
Yeah.
TikTok is about this. This is what people want to see, and I will use him as a consultant or something like that.
That's what earlier when I said you got to get the influencers on, you got to get the ones who know the exact platform nowadays because they're also
Yeah.
involved
I
in
can tell you
themselves.
what doesn't work on TikTok is just posting a picture with no audio because I take my nature pictures and I do it on all social media. And that's the one where like I'll get one like and other ones I'll get like, I'm just like whatever, I don't care. Like
PJ takes some great photos of those nature walks. Like, holy crap, they're
I've seen.
inspiring.
For that matter, I just bought a new camera.
nice.
Uh, I started my life as a photographer, a sports photographer. I used to have an amazing camera. I still have it.
Of course you
Uh,
do.
It's in
It's
perfect
right over
condition in the box.
uh,
It's a
It's
suitcase.
literally right next to his desk as we're
Yep.
speaking.
Yeah,
well, because um,
just polished it.
I just cleaned it up.
Yep.
But so that was my like trusty Canon A1.
Nice.
Great camera. And so I just bought a new one, with a Sony this time, because they have just like amazing captors. And I've decided like to start making more nature photography, and I want to do macro photography because I love to get really close to stuff. But the problem is that I don't have the right lens, so I've been kind of like scouring the web to kind of find the lens that allows me to get like. So I think I'm going to buy like when you buy the camera, like they give you like a 28 to 70.
Yeah.
Uh, composite lens, but I think I'm going to buy like a 25 or a 30 millimeter to kind of like take more kind of panoramas and close-ups and stuff like that.
That's
But
awesome.
basically, it's like seeing your nature pictures as like, oh shit, I need to photograph again. Uh, Another thing to do, right? It's like
Another too
game,
many things.
retro game, photography. I also want to make a cartoon,
Really?
an
What kind of
animated.
cartoon?
Like I've never made an animated film, and I have a whole bunch of skills that apply to animated films,
Mhm.
particularly in 2D. So it's like, oh, well, maybe I could should take the time to make one, like a full feature, like a 1 hour and a half animated film with like, mixing like some 3D stuff and some 2D animation and yeah.
And your whole neighborhood could do the voices.
Then I can get eight from no. Not happening.
Oh.
Yeah, but yeah, the animated film was like that's a lot of work. I've done so
Mhm.
when I've made a game that was called Two Kingdoms, which was my first game for that matter, in 2001, and Two Kingdoms had cutscenes, and those cutscenes were animated in Flash and stuff like that, with like voice acting and all that stuff. So I had like several cutscenes in that game, but like total, it was maybe like 10 minutes. I remember because I was maintaining a blog at the time, and I was saying it's like I actually spent more time working on the cutscenes than I spent working on the game itself because like animation is so fucking time intensive.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like I would make like I can make a level like for example the elf dungeon. Uh, Today is the 10th day that I'm working on it, and it's almost finished. So
It's over.
I can make an entire level in 10 days, right? 10 days of work in animation would give me maybe five to 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just like, video editing, like it's an hour to produce like a 30-second clip if you're lucky, it's crazy.
Yeah, like I used to make those kind of like content update on Garage Collective, kind of showing, etc. And I know we are overdue to make one on Drakkenridge, and I was like planning to make one during the Christmas break, but it's like I just cannot find the time to do it because not only you need to take the time to film it, but you also need the time take the time to edit it, and it's too long.
Yeah.
The classic Futurama line. It took me an hour to write. I thought it would take an hour to read.
Yeah, no, it's so maybe we'll make one in January or like when we get closer to release. We can have like a lot of content to show.
Cool. Well, I
Yeah.
am excited. You were kind of like ramping up, showing more and more. And I was like, oh shit, is this coming out sooner than I thought? Like, so it's awesome to see all that. And like I said, I took the day off. I'm glad it's coming soon. I'm sure it moves quick for you guys. Like,
Yeah,
You
I
were
mean,
joking? You
what was
really
that?
booked, he wasn't joking. You really booked the day off?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I marked it on my calendar now.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should. I don't know, like it will be significantly longer to play than Stones of Isle for Shock Troops. Because we have so much content, and some of the islands are very big, and so I don't think it's a game that you will beat in a day. But maybe I don't know.
I won't. I'll be too busy looking around every tree and rock
Playing fetch.
and like older VR games like Stones of Harloth and Shock Troops, like I love them for what they are because like every Halloween I'll fire up Shock Troops and do a quick run through there and same thing with Stones of Harloth. Just kind of when I get in the feeling of it and there is something to be said for the bite-sized quick like you can kind of play through the whole thing in a weekend if you really want to. It's just kind of nice and because again, sorry to go back to Dragon Age, but like I'm 60 hours in. I think I'm close, but like I feel like I've just put so much time into this game and I'm not really getting, what I'd really want, but I gotta finish it. So something to be said for those short bite-sized gratifying. I got through it. I can go back and revisit whenever I want because I know it won't engulf my life for 3, 4 months, So, um,
No, I mean it's you're right. I mean, and that was part of the business model for Stones of Alaf and Shock Troops was like it's a bite size 4 to 6 hours experience that is priced at like $9.99. And it's like, hey, it doesn't require a huge commitment and it's a quick to pick up. And then even once you beat it, you can still go back to the arenas or like some levels that you liked, etc., etc. So everything is kind of like made to kind of be convenient for you to pick up the game and play. Drakkenridge still has that same aspect, but I think we are looking at 10 hours, a 10-hour campaign. Uh, right now, a lot of the game is actually made. It's just that that's what I was explaining to the sound designer. Is like we have a lot of small portions of the game that are made, but they are not strung up together yet. So they are kind of like and so when I finish writing the quest, this is when we are going to start kind of like sequentially like attaching them together. And so we'll get a better vibe of like what is the play time. But as I said, we are anticipating something closer to 10 hours. And then there is a distinction of like content that you do like the main quests, but then there is also kind of repeatable content. Like we have crafting, for example. So if you want to upgrade your weapons, you have to kind of like get materials. Gathering those materials is kind of a game loop in itself, right? And you will have like locations where you can do that, or you will have enemies that will drop some of those, etc. So for the people that really want to maximize, like if you want to play it, like, and that's the thing, like we made it a conscious decision. It's like, hey, we are going to have a fast track, and that's going to be the main quest for the people that just want to beat the game. And that is going to be however long it is, still, I think, in that kind of 10-hour time estimation. But then we also have the people that wants more of their game, and we are also going to give them a track by kind of like allowing them to kind of like revisit some areas in order to gather more components so that they can get more spells or better weapons and things like that. So these guys may be able, I don't know, to kind of sink 20 hours. I don't know, like I'm saying this, but again, like we'll get a better idea of what's tangible when more of the game is playable from A to Z. Because right now it's just kind of like we have each section is almost integrated except for the final one, right? For example, like I finished the dwarf last month, and they are already
audio.
yeah, you're not
Okay.
muted. So yeah, where was I?
Stringing
So yeah,
everything together, playtime. Yeah.
yeah, when we this month is going to be instrument this month and January, we are making a build next week to kind of like start kind of like bringing we have like the first island and the first dungeon and then the second island like almost all wrapped up. But we are still missing a lot of the quests, and so I think that will give us a better idea of like how long is the game, and how can we divide the length between people that want to achieve something fast versus the people that want to spend time in the world.
Yeah. Without like a lot of fluff and, all that stuff you don't want to do.
Right.
Well, I mean, and the thing is that, we are only two people,
Yeah.
so we don't really have room for fluff anyway.
Yeah,
So it's
true. But
Yeah, get up that mountain and find those eagles.
was that?
Got to get up the mountain and find those eagles.
Yeah, for sure. That and the dog side quest are going to be the type of thing where people are going to miss it, and then they're going to see a video that someone posted on YouTube of a playthrough
Yeah.
where they've had it, and they're like, "Wait, there's an eagle," and then they have to go back and find out where they can get the eagle or where they can get the dog companion.
yeah.
Playing the long game.
Yeah.
So that is really an important question because, like, for example, the eagles, so we introduced them on the main island because it's so big. But they will also be on the Dwarf Island, on the Elf Island. So the question is like, if people don't do the side quests on the main island and they arrive to the Dwarf Island, do we make them travel back to the main island to do the quest, or do we have a version of that quest on the dwarf. Like, I don't believe that that's the case. I think they should go back to the main island. That gives them a reason to go there. But um, that's also the problem is like the more you're adding complexity, the more you're adding like edge scenarios
Right.
where something can go wrong or
Oh,
some
yeah.
player can miss it. Uh, and that's the reason why, like, I think Drakkenridge is really stretching our limits of like what we can deliver. It's testing us.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't think you'd want to get into making a second version of those quests because that reminds me of the end of like the Red Dead 2. If I don't know if you guys played through that, but like you switch from the main
I played the beginning, but I never finished it.
because you stay too long in the snowy part for like 4 days of gameplay. But at the end, you switch from the main character to the character that shows up in the first Red Dead game, which this one's a prequel, so you kind of switch. And you can go revisit like everybody you quested with the main character. And like if you did those quests as the main character, the
Ooh.
people in the quest will remember that character. You'll have a conversation about them. And if
Oh
you
man.
didn't do that quest with the main character, you can now do the quest as that other character. And my mind was like, I can see all the sticky notes on all the whiteboards. And I'm like, I didn't even want to do that anymore because I don't want to think about how much work that took. It gave me
Yeah,
anxiety on their behalf. Like, no.
Yeah.
see that's actually you're mentioning something. I'm going to bounce on that because it is a discussion we had with Simeon a couple times. But you know, of all the people that played Stones of Olaf, that bought Stones of Olaf or Shock Troops, how many people finished the game? Right? Um, let's say that 30% finished the game, and I'm pretty sure I'm being extremely optimistic. Um, think about that. Like for example, it seems, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Simeon, but it seems that you really enjoyed the elf
Oh
biome,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's the last one. So that means that potentially 60% of our players are never going to see it, right? And that's potentially some of our best work. Like what you were mentioning, like imagine the amount of work that went into kind of like making sure that that thing at the Red Dead Redemption 2 is working.
And
That's at the end of the
yeah.
game. Like at that time, you're like having maybe 10% of your players left, and you're making all of that work for just a fraction of your player base. When you're a AAA studio, you can do that. When you're Rockstar, I'm sure you can do that. When you're Garage Collective, you have to think twice.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
yeah,
it's bonkers to do
I,
something like that. So is there a probably not an easy answer, but is there a way to make sure they can experience some of that later work and glimpses to let them know, like, there's more
well,
ahead?
it's complicated. So for Shark Troops, yes, we could. Basically, we launched the game, and then a month later, what I did is I opened all the levels. There was no like with Shock Troops, when you played it legit for the first month, you had to unlock.
Mhm.
Like you had to play in order, and basically completing a level would unlock the next one, etc., etc. And then I think it's not the first month, but I think it's when we did the. No, we waited 3 months, but when we did the ghost of
The whale.
the whale,
Yeah.
um, well, the problem is that technically that's a mission that was happening after you beat the last boss, and so technically it would have been locked unless you finish the last boss. And we're like, okay, we have new content. What about the people that haven't finished the game? They need to have access to that. And at that point, it's like, well, we can even make that unlock, or we can just decide to unlock everything, and so people can play the game in whatever order they want. For Drakkenridge, it's going to be a little bit more complicated because so much of the sequence of the game is driven by quests and story that there is no real easy way to kind of unlock everything at once. So, well, I just have to kind of trust that the players are having enough fun with our game that they want to kind of see the end of it. but with the understanding that you will have some people that are going to play it for a week and then they will never touch it again. And they will never see that. So that's where the trailer is important. That's where like video coverage of people playing the game, etc.
Yeah.
So that players can see, oh, it's like, oh, wait, there is a whole new island that I've never seen. Maybe I want to kind of like stick with the game to kind of get there. To me, the thing is that these new environments, I said like I'm an explorer and but to me, that's part of the reward system. It's like if you spend enough time in one environment, you're going to finish it quickly, and then you're going to move on to the next place that is going to be completely new and completely different. And that's how I'm rewarding the player by giving them something new and interesting to see. And the thing is that the game may be long, but it's not like no island. I think no island is ever going to um, overstay its welcome. Like I think our pace is pretty breezy. Like it's like, okay, you're going to see new stuff. Like for example, the whole tutorial takes about an hour, right? Like the first island and then the first dungeon, you can clear it in around 1 hour. And then you spend an hour there. Now you're moving on to the next island. That is going to be a little bit bigger. And this one, you're going to have some back and forth that are kind of story motivated. But so each island you're going to spend maybe 2 3 hours on it, and then you will move on to the next and then move on to the next. So hopefully with that kind of like bite size, so the game is big but it has a lot of diversity that allows us to have like still bite-sized content that you should never grow tired of, because by the time you're like, okay, you know what, I've seen enough of this, well, we are ready to move on to a new space.
Yeah. Smart. Keep the player engaged. Keep moving.
Well, because again, I'm like that. It's like if you keep me like that was the original scene of Dragon Age Inquisition. It's like
Yeah.
it was pretty. I really like that environment, but it's like, okay, I spent 10 hours there. Like, I mean, when am I going to see something new? And I could, but then the quest, like I could have gone to some new spaces, but it felt that I was kind of like short-circuiting the narrative in order to move on. And I was like, okay, well, so yeah.
Yeah.
I think the new one is a lot more clever because it's designed more like the old thing where the level is kind of like more directive. It's more kind of like setup. It's not that open world stuff where it's like you just have quest after quest after quest after quest after quest, and you never stop and you never see the end of it.
Yeah.
I think that new formula that they did on the last one may be more my pace, and I think this is more what we are doing with Drakkenridge.
Yeah, it sounds good. Um, yeah, a lot of the newer games, Dragon Age included, like they do the same thing. They walk the line of like people that want more and then the people that just want to get through it. So you have side quests pop up, but there's a very easy way to like kind of keep going and you can always come back. Like it's easy to figure out how to get back to those places instead of like some games, like it's really difficult, like kind of like you're saying with the Jedi game. You're stuck in that, and I've been in that same scenario a couple times with the games where it's like I don't even want to go back to that game. It's too long. I'm in a hard spot. It wasn't fun. It's a bad taste in my mouth. Like, so yeah, they've done some good stuff, not just Dragon Age, but modern
Yeah,
games to get back into
I,
it. So
my wife, it's my wife because she liked Inquisition so much, and so the moment the new one came out, she bought it, and then I think I bought mine because I was kind of fearing of missing out. But I barely touched it. Like I'm still kind of like in the tutorial area, and the thing is that I'm not going to have much time. Like it's about to get worse because uh, I'm going to be done with all the main content next week. But then that means that I have now all the side content, all the additional weapons, the design of all the spells. So like we barely talked about magic, but like we have a lot more magic spells than we had in Stones of Alaf. So that means also like lots of these effects, lots of like there is a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't think I'm going to touch Veilguard until this summer.
hmm.
There are so many games that I want to try. Like I want to try the new Warhammer, like Colonial Marine 2. I want to try Helldivers 2. Like there is a whole bunch.
Yeah,
And it's
Oh
just,
man,
well, I'm going to have to wait this summer to kind of like play them.
yeah,
if you want some horrible teammates for Helldivers too.
What do you mean horrible teammates? Isn't that the point of Eldiver? I played Eldiver 1 a lot, so it's like
Yeah,
friendly fire is that's the salt of the game, right? Like
That's
yeah.
you
Wookie
won't
has
hold.
stepped on so many of my landmines over.
yep.
Do you
He'll
know Simeon? Do you know Eldivers?
Yeah, I've played a couple missions of Helldivers at my friend's house. Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's so brutal. Like I love that game.
it's
But for
they
that
just
matter, I used it in and you were. Did you take yeah, you took core principles of game design with me. Eldivers was on one of my slide when I talk about cybernetics and more particularly like dynamic difficulty
Mm.
adjustments, DDA systems. I used Helldiver as a perfect example of like a game that lets you kind of like, oh, you want it to be easier, these are your stratagems. You want to be harder, don't use them. You want it to be even harder, pick that planet. It's a lot of player choices. Like it's a very, very clever approach on difficulty that I liked very much. But yeah, Helldivers 2, I did not play it at all. Yeah, there are so many games I want to play. It's unfair, but it's like at the end of the day, I'm still having more fun making them than playing them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
but
And
there's
pretty
something to
soon we get to
be.
share it. I mean, we get to share it with you tonight. So I mean, appreciate you having us on to like begin sharing. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was pumped. Cyril was like, "Hey, are you guys still talking about games?" I'm like, "No, but we will." And we'll help get the word out. So,
Yeah, thank you.
well, and for us, it's exciting because even though I share some stuff on Twitter, we haven't revealed a lot of the stuff. Uh, do you want to show some gameplay, Simeon?
I don't know if Unity was loading quite.
Oh,
We
okay.
should have.
Okay.
You can send us some clips too. We could
Yeah, I can send some clips.
stitch it in there.
Yeah, so that's the part, like we are about to enter the stressful part because we are really wrapping up the game. But we also like the part that is rewarding is that now we are starting to have enough content that we can actually share stuff. Uh, and some of the stuff we have is pretty fucking cool. Like I'm pretty excited. Is it working or is it?
It has to reconnect itself.
Don't worry, don't worry.
It's sitting for a while.
Well, that will give us a reason to do another one of those podcasts.
yeah. But yeah,
Tomorrow
I
night.
mean, yeah, Wookie's got to work in the morning, so it's bedtime for him. But yeah, we've been talking for over 2 hours.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
yeah,
I'd
no,
keep going if I didn't have to work.
it's but yeah, we'd be definitely be down to check in like spring, summer, whenever you guys aren't running ragged. But yeah, it's awesome to see. Like I said, you're sharing a lot, and it sounds like there's even more. So that's even more exciting because I'm on my winter break, so I always watch Lord of the Rings and stuff. So as I'm playing Dragon Age and you're sharing like dwarven stuff, I'm just like getting a big old dwarven boner going,
I knew you were gonna say something like that.
But yeah, it's
It
just
is
great to
not.
see.
It is not a boat. It's a pickaxe.
Oh, there's me hammer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reality is that if everything goes well, there is always a certain amount of time right after QA. There is about a month or 2 weeks between the moment we are done with QA and the moment we are available on the store. And here, like, we'll be kind of like, and we cannot work on the game during that time, meaning like
Yeah.
whatever has been greenlit by QA is what's going to ship the day. So it's like, and we still kind of work on like anticipating some bugs or fixing some stuff or usually preparing what will be the next content update, but potentially towards the mid-May, we will be in such a spot where we won't be super busy because we'll be done with QA and we'll just be waiting for the game to kind of ship. And maybe at that time we can kind of like have a
Yeah.
thing where we can show a lot of gameplay and we can kind of explain some of the decisions, etc., etc.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd be all for it. Yeah, thanks guys. It was a great chat. Good to catch up. I'm so
Well,
pumped.
thank you for having us.
Yeah,
That's the first kind of official kind of like outside of Garage Collective to talk about Drakkenridge. So I appreciate that it's with you.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome. And I
we
and I
appreciate that.
I really thank you for like when you think about dwarves, you think about us.
Yeah, you posted a lot, and we had some discussions on. Yeah, well, I mean, I like a good dwarf. The our musician Retrovex just is currently working on the dwarven music, and he finished the music for the dungeon, which Simeon likes a lot. And which I do too. The only thing that I don't like is the title of the song, because the title of the song is "A Good Dwarf is a Strong Dwarf," and I was like, I understand what you're trying to do, but it's a little basic. But it's not wrong. A good dwarf is a strong dwarf.
Yeah.
A little what's the word? I can't think of the word right now, but it's a little
It's a little on the nose. I mean,
yeah.
and as everybody knows, a dwarf nose is a mountain in itself. So. Okay,
Oh,
well,
shoot.
thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, like, stay tuned on Twitter. I will post there or in Blue Sky. My goal is to write. I would like to write an article before the end of December. Uh, as I was telling to Simeon, it's also kind of a way to anticipate some of the content that will go in the book. But I wanted to kind of do an anatomy of the zone. And so, for example, maybe take like the elf area and kind of like explain like how the island is designed, what are the hotspots, the things to do in the island, then kind of dive into the inn, dive into the dungeons, kind of like give people a little bit of a taste of like what's coming. And doing that with the elves because it's the last level. That way, it's kind of like it's out there.
Yeah.
People that check the game can see that, oh yeah, this is content to look forward to.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I think that was my parting words, Simeon. Is there
Yeah. Thanks again. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Happy to share anything, do anything we can to help get the word out. But we'll catch up closer to launch and go from there.
All right.
are you going to put that on YouTube?
Yeah, this will be, we'll release the audio and then the video on YouTube and Facebook and all that fun stuff. And I'll shoot you guys links when I get that done tomorrow.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Yep.
Take
Best
care.
of luck. Happy holidays.
I'm
Bye.
Likewise.
doing the peace
Oh
sign with
yeah,
the
yeah.
screen.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, those things. Happy holidays.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.